the social problems that one will have in substituting humans for machines is going to be far easier in those countries that have declining populations.
Larry Fink, the shadowy titan of BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager with over $10 trillion in its grip, has been named interim co-chair of the World Economic Forum alongside Roche's Andre Hoffman.
Who are the people who are going to be able to have sufficient humility to accept that the current status quo doesn't work? And who are the people who are going to act on this?
There's three giant corporations, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, which own collectively, they own each other, so it's really one giant corporation. But they also own 89% of the S&P 500. They own everything. They've now decided to buy every single family home in America. So if they stay on the current trajectory, they will own 60% of the homes in this country, single-family homes, by 2030.
This move, announced on August 15th, 2025, comes right after an internal probe that cleared World Economic Forum founder Klaus Schwab of misconduct, though it admitted to minor irregularities.
So we penetrate the cabinets.
BlackRock's tentacles stretch into every major corporation, government, and central bank. And now Fink's got a front row seat at the WEF's Davos Circus, where the world's power brokers plot their next moves.
What's the end game for you? You're rich, you're powerful. What's next for you?
Consolidation of power in the hands of a man who's been steering markets and pushing agendas like ESG investing, a Trojan horse for centralized control.
What is the goal of ESG?
So the stated goal was to create a set of measurements that they could use to justify taking trillions of dollars of other people's money and doing activist investing with it.
The hedge funds, BlackRock, the banks, these guys want.
Larry Fink, the guy who built BlackRock from a scrappy startup into a financial juggernaut that owns stakes in over 14,000 companies worldwide. His annual letters to CEOs read like manifestos for a new world order, urging companies to bow to stakeholder capitalism, a soft term for prioritizing globalist agendas over profits.
I was with someone the other day who knows Larry Fink really well, and I said, I think Larry Fink has really been damaging to the country, to the world. And this person said, I feel sorry for Larry Fink. Why? Why would you feel sorry for Larry? Because he's the single unhappiest person I've ever met.
So what can we expect in the coming months? Expect a turbocharged push for digital assets, ESG policies, and global governance that threatens national sovereignty. Fink's BlackRock already manages the largest Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, worth nearly $95 billion, and his WEF gig could accelerate crypto adoption as a tool for financial surveillance.
Let me ask you this. Will you do another ETF? How about an XRP ETF? I know you got Ether out there. How about XRP? Can you answer that?
I can't.
Under Fink, it's a blueprint for merging corporate power with government policy, creating a world where unelected financiers call all the shots. Fink's leadership risks cementing that reputation, turning Davos into a command center for a financial feudalism where BlackRock's interests reign supreme.
We've had Christine Lagarde of the ECB say that the entire financial system needs to be rewired for climate change. And she's not the only one saying that. You have the head of climate finance at the UN, Mark Carney, former head of the Bank of England and Bank of Canada, and former Goldman Sachs guy. I'm also saying similar things. Larry Fink is saying similar things. The banker consensus is that the entire global economy has to be remade. And one of the main pillars of that new system they wish to impose on us is the carbon market, which they currently refer to as the voluntary carbon market. But like digital ID, it will be voluntary in name only.
This isn't a promotion. It's a coronation for a man who's been pulling strings behind the scenes for decades. Wake up, America. This is the real Great Reset. John Baum reporting for InfoWars.
For unique perspectives in Christian truth and one-of-a-kind Bible studies, please visit our website, truthhuntershow.com. Help us get around big tech censorship on YouTube, Facebook, and others by subscribing to our website. You can do so by entering your email address right here and click subscribe. Another option is click the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner, and you'll get a pop-up where you can enter your email address here and click subscribe. To support the work of the Truth Hunters, simply scroll down the page and you'll see ways that you can contribute by PayPal, Patreon, and Venmo. Thank you very much. All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. It's your host, Doug Diamond. Hope you guys are doing well out there and have had a good week. It is 10:06 p.m. It's always 10:06 p.m. on 8/24/25. So welcome to the Diamond Report Live. And we're going to take a look at the news and a few other odds and ends as we progress through the evening. Generally, as you'll see there in the crawler across the bottom, the show usually runs between 2 and 3 hours. And note that it is commercial free. You will not have any commercials popping up. If you're watching on Rumble, there's really nothing I can do about that. That's how they pay for their platform. But note that there probably are ads when you hit the live stream as a pre-roll type thing. But yeah, I don't insert any ads. Nothing is monetized from my perspective. So hello and welcome, and thank you for being here tonight. I figured we would take a look at the news together and see what kind of information and probably trouble we can get into tonight. So hello again and welcome. So let's take a look at this first one on Hal's website, HalTurnerRadioshow.com. It sounds to me like, I know, shocker, but I think Zelensky has already gone back on his word. Imagine that. Imagine my shock, as Paul Joseph Watson says. Zelensky announces more war, says Luhansk, Donetsk, and Crimea will be Ukraine again, quote unquote. He's got his lovely costume on there, pretending to be so much a nationalist, but of course he's just a puppet. Hal says here in a startling and grotesque walkback of all the discussions for peace over the past 2 weeks, and we could pretty much set our clocks by this, right? Ukraine's president, quote unquote, Volodymyr Zelensky, announced to his country today that Luhansk, Donetsk, and Crimea will be Ukraine again. My guess is not if Russia has anything to say about it. I mean, the people that live in those areas want to be part of Russia. They voted as such. So I don't think they're going anywhere. But the little would-be dictator here would certainly like to make that change. And in this video, I pause it here on this shot, and we will be together again as one family, as one country, in case you are a little rusty on your Ukrainian. He also said that Ukraine will never again in history be forced into the shame that Russians call compromise. Zelensky made this speech for Ukraine's Independence Day today. How about that? And it was broadcast nationwide. Thus, it appears Ukraine has chosen more war. Well, the people running the show have chosen more war, and that, of course, is the globalists, NATO, and the people at the top of our government. Probably not Trump. I think personally that he wants peace, but there are so many other people who have access to the U.S. government that I think he's being overwritten, personally, in this situation. So will there actually be peace? I don't know. I guess we'll see how it all works out, but it's not looking very promising at the moment. So yes, of course, Zelensky goes back on his word. It was really just a matter of time. So it'll be interesting to see where it all, what all transpires this week as this becomes known to the public. I would just remind you guys that Hal Turner is usually very accurate on his reporting. So, and you can hear it in Zelensky's own words on this video. I didn't play the video for you because of the screen sharing option here. It's a little rough on this particular platform, but it is there, HalTurnerRadioshow.com. It's front and center on his site at the moment. So feel free to take a look at that if you want. Again, if your Ukrainian's good. No, but the subtitles are there, obviously. So let's take a look at a couple other articles from the same site. Another eye roller here. Israeli warplanes attack. You could just stop right there if you wanted. Israeli warplanes attack the Yemen capital and presidential palace. So up in flames. Israeli warplanes attacked the capital city of Sana'a, Yemen, it doesn't say. Earlier today, it just says 00. Eastern U.S. time Sunday. I don't know if that's midnight or what. An oil depot located on 60th Street in Sana'a, image above, violently exploded and continues to burn, as this story publishes at 10:33 a.m. Eastern. Okay. The presidential palace was also bombed by aircraft. The Israeli Defense Force officials are saying publicly the attacks on Yemen have ended and assassinations were not part of our agenda. So they just wanted mostly peaceful bombing, apparently. The strike on the presidential palace is a message to the Houthis that the authorities' sights are in our sights. The authorities, of course, would be self-proclaimed God's chosen people of Israel, which, of course, is Netanyahu and company. The Israeli attack was reportedly intended to be much larger, but was apparently significantly thwarted by new air defenses fielded by Yemen. So someone is backing Yemen here. Possibly Russia, I don't know exactly, but pretty interesting to see how that's going to all unfold as well. Israel continues unabated to just bomb whoever the heck they want to bomb, and no one is going to hold them accountable. Because, again, they think they're God's chosen people. Just ask the Gazans how they feel about it. All right, and then this one, this is definitely a big red flag warning signal here. Heavy U.S. naval deployments heading toward Venezuela. It's about to look like it's going to go down in Venezuela. In case you didn't know, again, on Hal's website, he's got a pretty good write-up here. A major buildup of U.S. naval forces is underway outside Venezuela's waters, raising questions whether the Trump administration is preparing for a military confrontation with Maduro, who is Venezuela's president. Early last week, news broke that up to 3 guided missile destroyers would soon arrive in the region. Missile destroyers. Wow. The naval warships will target boats operated by drug cartels transporting fentanyl into the U.S., officials said, but they have not said how they will do so. Sunday afternoon, so earlier today, we find out that also headed to the region is the Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group, including the USS San Antonio, the USS Iwo Jima, and the USS Fort Lauderdale, carrying 4,500 sailors, and the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit with 2,200 Marines. So that is a lot of manpower. Those ships in the Marines departed Norfolk earlier this week, but had to turn around to avoid Hurricane Aaron. They're expected to head back out soon and are likely to arrive in the next several days. Several P-8 surveillance planes and a submarine are also deployed to the region. The U.S. is saying that fentanyl ships from Venezuela into the U.S. Yeah, it's coming from China. At least the components that make up fentanyl certainly do. The U.S. also says that Venezuela has close relations with both Russia and Iran and is constructing Iranian drone factories inside Venezuela. How about that? Iranian drone factories inside Venezuela. Finally, the U.S. says that Venezuela issues legitimate but bogus passports to members of Hezbollah. Several months ago, intel circuits claimed the Russians were setting up facilities for long-range missiles to be in Venezuela, but under Russian control. I did not see any corroborating proof of these claims, Hal says. If those claims are correct, the U.S. could be struck by Russian missiles fired from Venezuela, a lot faster than fired from Russia. Those are the kinds of claims that the average American, that military action is coming fast, Hal says. So, again, something just to be aware of. I'm not saying go worry and cower in the corner. I'm just saying be aware that this is happening, and I'm not sure how much of this, if anything, the mainstream media is reporting. So anyway, Hal is pretty much first on the job, or certainly one of the early people on HalTurnerRadioShow.com, and he'll talk about it, no doubt, on his radio show that he does 5 nights a week. So feel free to tune in to his show and or go to his site. I'm not getting paid to promote it. I think he has really good content, really good information. So the radio show is totally free to listen to. So anyway, feel free to take a look at that. And then, as we saw tonight, the very first video, BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, I call him Larry the Fink, appointed to lead the WEF, World Economic Forum. So there he is, Larry the Fink, head of BlackRock. Reuters reported that last week the WEF, which, who's in charge of that now? Who's above everyone at the WEF? Do you know that?
answer to that question? That would be King Charles III, that is, who is in charge of the WEF and always has been. Last week, the WEF closed an investigation on its founder, Klaus Schwab, 87 years old, clearing him of any wrongdoing. Imagine that. They investigate themselves and find that he did nothing wrong. After a whistleblower alleged the Schwab family mixed their personal affairs with the forum's resources without proper oversight, Schwab filed a criminal complaint and separate legal action against the whistleblowers. But he intends to drop the cases, according to this. WEF appointed BlackRock CEO Larry Fink and Roche Holdings Vice Chair Andre Hoffman as interim co-chairs of its board. I would say that Larry Fink has wanted to be the main head cheese there at the WEF for a long time, so I don't think he's going anywhere. They said they look forward to reinventing and strengthening the organization. I bet. And then it goes on to mention this video, which is actually the one that we started the show with tonight. So, not good. And if you have any doubts about that, I pulled up the World Economic Forum website for you, and here it is on the homepage, August 15th. So this is obviously been, this news has been around for a few days now. Statement from Larry Fink and Andre Hoffman, interim co-chairs of the World Economic Forum. So anyway, there you go. We are honored to take on this leadership role on an interim basis at a pivotal time in the World Economic Forum. As the organization moves into the new chapter, we look ahead with clarity, purpose, and confidence in the forum's enduring mission. Yeah, and it doesn't state it here, but he's already said, just since all this rolled out, just since all this happened a few days ago, he's already said that they're going to put an end to private home ownership. And also, by the way, if you don't like that, they're also going to take your cars away. He just said that in the last few days. So get ready. The WEF and those who run it, i.e. King Charles, mean business. And many of you guys who listen to this show probably already know or have heard me say that I personally believe that King Charles III is the biblical Antichrist. He will be. He's not quite in that role yet, but biblically speaking, he has met all of the criteria. So again, just something to keep in mind of. And yes, he is in charge of the WEF as well as a hugely important role in the UN. So just get ready. He's been hiding right there under our noses the whole time. Trump provokes war with Venezuela, sends warships and Marines under pretext of stopping drug trafficking. So again, yeah, pretext, who knows? That may be what Trump is making this decision about as far as stopping the fentanyl, but who knows what's actually happening here. And let's hope that cooler heads will prevail, but it's not looking too good right now. This article on needtoknow.news says U.S. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt claimed that Venezuelan President Maduro is not a legitimate president and is exporting drugs. She said that the U.S. is prepared to use every element of American power to halt drug flows. Trump has mobilized 3 destroyers and 4,000 Marines going towards Venezuela right now. However, Venezuela is not a threat to the U.S. No, they're too busy eating zoo animals and their pets. President Maduro announced a plan to mobilize 4.5 million militia members across the country. Trump's incursion is about the oil, this says. At a campaign rally in 2024, Trump declared that he wanted to steal Venezuela's oil. He said, quote, "When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. It would have been right next door. We would have taken over Venezuela. We would have gotten all their oil," end quote. Well, that seems pretty obvious to me. That's what he wanted, at least at the time. So the whole thing's couched under the whole fentanyl, shipping fentanyl into the U.S. Trump campaigned as the peace president, but he is risking war. Jimmy Dore is who they're quoting in this article, quipped, "No matter who you vote for, you get John McCain." So, unfortunately, that does seem to be the way it is. Anyway, video embedded here and more additional information on this article, needtoknow.news. And if you see the crawler across the bottom of your screen, you will note somewhere in there it will mention my Substack. So make sure you're on the Substack list. Welcome to all the new folks who have joined. We have quite an uptick, actually, in not really what you could call Substack subscribers, as in people just, joining the list for free to get the emails. They have another level on Substack called followers, kind of like on Facebook. You can follow somebody and not actually get all of the emails and stuff that are sent out. So I've had a number of new followers on Substack, all as a result, and I mentioned it last week, all as a result of the really good Gregory Mannarino Substack, because he recommended the Diamond Report, and I've gotten a lot of new folks come in as followers, mostly, a few new people on the email list as well. But anyway, welcome to all of them, and I think that's pretty cool, so thank you to Gregory Mannarino. Very cool of him to do that. Need to know.news, House GOP demands fire aid, send remaining $25 million, because that's all that's left, to LA fire victims, and answer for the $75 million sent to the nonprofits. So we're still talking about the LA fires, because it's never going to end just like the Maui fires. Fire Aid was a benefit concert on January 30th, 2025 for victims of the Palisades and Altadena fires in LA that raised $100 million in donations. Donors were promised that their money would be sent directly to people affected by the wildfires. Of course they were. However, $75 million of the $100 million that was collected has gone to nonprofits, while only $25 million is left. I'm surprised it's not $25. House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan, Republican, Ohio, and Rep. Kevin Kiley from California, also a Republican, have demanded that Fire Aid produce a detailed breakdown of where donations to benefit the victims of the LA wildfires have gone, and that the remaining $25 million out of the $100 million donated to the organization be sent directly to the LA fire victims. You would think so, wouldn't you? After all, that's why they had the concert and all that. So if you gave money, I'm sorry, but it's gone. And they'll cook the books just enough to show how, they had to have $75 million in expenses, and actually we need the other $25 million as well for our expenses. So it's not over, of course, but don't expect anyone to be held accountable for this, because it is the state of Gavin Newsom. So anyway, just a little update on what's going on in California. It doesn't look too good, does it? And then this one on NeedToKnow.news, 80th anniversary of the death of John Birch, who was murdered by Chinese communist allies days after World War II ended. You know, the John Birch Society, him? John Birch was a devoted Christian missionary and was born in India to missionary parents before moving to the U.S. when he was 2. He became a U.S. military intelligence officer and heroically served in World War II. He was killed by Chinese communists who were supposedly U.S. allies on August 25th, 1945, just 10 days after the end of World War II. Captain Birch was only 27 when he embarked on a peaceful army mission and was shot and stabbed to death. There was a massive cover-up by forces within the U.S. government who did not want the American people to know the truth. The communists under Mao Zedong were simply not agrarian reformers, quote-unquote, and they were not our allies. Here's a statement from G. Edward Griffin, who is the person who runs this website. That's why his name's right there. He says, quote, I personally researched the facts relating to the legend of John Birch as reported in the book The Life of John Birch by Robert Welch, and found it to be meticulously accurate. After spending a few days personally interviewing John Birch's parents, and later the woman he had hoped to marry, I became infused with great respect and admiration for this young man's courage and integrity. We are obligated on this day and every day to honor him as a fine human being and a great American. And I would say also a believer. So anyway, I just thought I would mention that. If you don't know a whole lot about the John Birch Society, I personally don't know a whole lot about it, but I can tell you that we do have some pretty good interviews with a couple folks from the John Birch Society on Lost Arts Radio that we did over the last few years. So I will try and remember and put that in the links when they go out on the Substack. So watch for that. It's pretty good information. It gives really good history, the background of the John Birch Society and what it's all about. And, you know, it's, I think, a really good thing to know at least something about. So just thought I would mention that. A couple more from this same site. This one's a kind of a sick one. definitely a sick one. New York Governor Hochul pardons killer, illegal alien, and other migrants to block deportations. Yes, she's now actively pardoning illegal migrants who kill Americans just to keep them from being deported. She's issuing pardons. So, and I think she definitely knows what she's doing, unlike Joe Biden in the auto pen. New York Governor Hochul secretly pardoned, and then, I don't know how to pronounce this name, Somchith, somebody, an illegal alien from Laos that was convicted of manslaughter as part of a bigger clemency grant to 13 people, many with serious criminal histories. The pardoning for this person was issued on July 1st and came just in time to stop his impending deportation. Somchich, who arrived in the U.S. as a refugee, was convicted of a fatal shooting in front of a Brooklyn pool hall back in 1990. His deportation was stalled for years due to Laos refusing to accept him back home. Oh, they didn't want him either. 1990, let's see here. Who was president during 1990? That would have been George H.W. Bush. Other, quote, migrants whom Hochul freed included 3 lawful permanent residents from the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, and South Africa who pled guilty to selling cocaine more than 20 years ago, as well as a Colombian who pleaded guilty to attempting to rob someone and riding in a stolen car, according to Hochul's office. So there's a video embedded here and more information about the pool hall shooting and so forth. But yeah, wow. That is crazy. Anyway, that's what the Democrats like to do. Pardon all the illegals and let them stay. And give them everything. That's what they do. And then technocracy.news, just 3 of the top headlines here. Microsoft AI CEO. Chatbots are causing psychosis. Now this is another Patrick Wood post here on his site, technocracy.news. 2 years ago, I issued a blanket warning that AI would push the world into psychosis or a break from reality. Now people are falling into psychosis at a record rate. And there's a link to a separate article here called Warning, Reality is Escaping Out the Back Door. You must guard your mind and understand the concept of simulacra, which is something that Mr. Wood talks about a lot here. Be clear about this. The creators of AI and their leaders have it in their power to stop this on the spot. They refuse to do so. Even with the blind and stubborn arrogance of pharmaceutical companies that refuse to stop making harmful cigars. Addiction means customers. Customers mean money. And money trumps humanity. Pun intended there, I would say. Anyway, there's a video embedded and further information on this page, technocracy.news. The real reason your power bill doubled. AI data centers. Yeah, I mentioned this last week. We got our lovely power bill in the mail just a few days ago, and I was surprised to see that it increased over $100 in 1 month, and we didn't change a single thing. So that means the rates have gone up, not our usage, but yeah, just $100 like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next month. I guess I should start saving now. I issued a forecast a few months ago that by the end of 2026, some consumers in America will be receiving a power and water bill larger than their house payment. So get ready. This video makes the case and more. It has snuck up on Americans thanks to the abject corruption of local officials who receive contributions from big tech companies or their surrogates. This will anger you, but be prepared to fight. So data center dystopia. We'll link to this video directly in the Substack post that I send out in a day or two. So watch for that. The real reason your power bill doubled is not inflation. Yeah, they would like to hide behind that, wouldn't they? So anyway, talking about the numbers here and what people are seeing when they get that sense of shock and when they open their bill in the mail. So anyway, one more here from this same site. This one's another El Sicko type thing. Pregnancy robots to give birth to human babies. But I'm sure they won't be altered in any way. Only a technocrat would think this is a good idea, but only if the government would pay the tab with taxpayer funding. In Huxley's 1932 book that modeled technocracy, Brave New World, All children were incubated in artificial wombs. Women were forbidden to get pregnant or parent children. Their bodies were available to any male. How you like that one, women? Their bodies were available to any male, and love was forbidden. Again, that was the book called Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, 1932. They've been at this for a while, you guys. This did not just pop up overnight here. And then the article starts out with, there's a robot for that. What a time to be alive. People are marrying AI robots, and now robots might soon be able to carry babies. Wow. So talking about China and so on. So there's a lot here, again, on this article that we'll link to on the Substack post. But yeah, technocracy.news. And then Liberty Beacon, I pulled up one article from this. And I know some folks out there won't really care about this, but I personally think it's really just something that the average American could do to stand their ground. Whether you agree with this or not, we'll take a look here. CEO stands firm as officials try to stop him from flying a giant American flag. The CEO of Camping World, and I've driven by some Camping Worlds before, they do have massive flags. The CEO of Camping World responded to the barrage of lawsuits from city governments to stop him from flying giant American flags at his business locations, reiterating his stance that the flag is, quote, never coming down. Yeah, but it'll probably get burned, is my guess. Local officials have been pressuring CEO Mark Lemonis for quite some time because of ordinances that prohibit him from flying the giant flags at his business locations. In April 2024, the Camping World location in San Joaquin County was forced to remove the flag for alleged safety reasons and a lack of permits. So they just decide they don't like it and then start passing laws. At the time, Lemonis told Fox that if it were a marketing flag on the pole, he might take it down while the business works out the permitting issues with the county, but the American flag stays no matter what the county says. So it'll be interesting to see if they make him take it down or not. This is the guy here. Camping World CEO doubles down on not taking down American flags. So I think that's good that people are standing up for what they believe in. And it's his property, and if he doesn't want to take down his American flag, why should he? Anyway, that one's on the Liberty Beacon. All right, so the big news of the week, or at least one of the big stories, was John Bolton's house was raided. Update, wondering why Bolton's house was just raided? We've got a spicy twist. Just seeing him here reminds me that there's some really good cartoons about this whole thing. Of course, he's absolutely lambasted on X, and for good reason, obviously. The guy's a war criminal, a war pig. But there's a really good video going around that's showing where he's actually hidden all of these secret documents. It was in a USB drive stuffed under his mustache. Now, of course, I'm joking, but there's a really good AI video that shows this, that shows them lifting up his mustache and pulling out the USB drive. It's hilarious. Anyway, see if you can find that on X. I didn't find it because I just saw it real recently. Didn't have time to pull it up tonight. Anyway, yeah, it pays to read X posts carefully. We spotted the word raids, as in plural, in this post below. We had a feeling that more was coming, and we were right. So this is Benny Johnson's post. FBI agents have now swarmed John Bolton's Washington, D.C. office following the earlier raid on his home. So they hit the office as well. So yeah, we'll look at that a little bit closer tonight as well. But yeah, that's pretty interesting that that's happening. So that would be one of those things that many people have said, oh, that's never going to happen. Nobody's going to be held accountable. And obviously, this is just the first step. There is no indictment going on here yet. Nothing has happened to him. He's not anything but walking around free. And so, you know, obviously the verdict is out here as far as what happens to him. But at least that was the first step, and that was taken. So I think that's good news. And then the other big story in the last couple of days, Cracker Barrel, if you guys didn't know, has really kind of hit hard times here. Crumbling. Did Cracker Barrel's next stunt just seal their fate? Yeah, they're doing their best to become as woke as possible. So we'll take a look at some really funny memes and stuff in a little bit. We're sad to report that Cracker Barrel has gone woke, folks. Their new CEO seems more focused on pushing LGBTQ agenda than serving up the old-fashioned stick-to-your-ribs American food that made the place iconic. So yeah, we'll look at that a little bit as we move forward tonight. That one's very sad, but you can't help but laugh at it because it's so ridiculous. And then this is, again, hard for me to share on this platform, but it is a pretty telling short little video clip here. Just in, Cracker Barrel unveils new logo. CEO Julie Fels-Massino insists, note the three words in her name. Julie Fels-Massino insists people love the rebrand. Yes, she's going on here on Good Morning America saying how wonderful people think this is. But if you go on X, they are literally trashing everything that has to do with this rebrand. Rightfully so. And it's showing the old Cracker Barrel logo here and then the new one, which is really boring and definitely woke. So they removed the dude with the barrel. And then Hal here has a little update here. Cracker Barrel rebranding fired. This guy, not the CEO, but this guy was fired as a result of this. So it'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds. Cracker Barrel is rapidly headed into the same financial abyss as Bud Light after its rebranding caused stock value to plummet. Yeah, stockholders don't really like that too much. This guy, Arthur McWaters, says, I was fired from Cracker Barrel today. I ran our company's rebranding team. Turns out a small group of angry activists, small group, yeah, probably, 10 million people or so on X at least. Turns out a small group of angry activists didn't like that we took the old guy off the logo and threw a fit. They blamed me for tanking the stock price 19%. Wow. And fired me on the spot. Taking some time to reflect and we'll start looking for jobs soon. And then Hal says, get woke, go broke. So pretty interesting. This guy is apparently taking the fall. I'm not really sure, it wasn't his call. It would have been the CEO primarily. This guy would have had a lot to do with it perhaps, but he's apparently the fall guy at the moment. So yeah, we'll look at the whole Cracker Barrel thing a little bit more as we move forward tonight. And a little bit of good news here. Texas is finally firing her, but there's one catch. This is Jasmine Crockett, for those who don't know. It's finally happening, folks. Texas is about to give the boot to wannabe ghetto queen Jasmine Crockett. Was it thanks to some emergency election? Nope. It was even more poetic than that. Republicans turned the tables on the Dems and used their favorite trick against them, redistricting. Yeah, that would be gerrymandering, because the Dems have gerrymandered Texas so badly over the years, in their favor, of course, so they can have more elected people, more blue than actually is being represented by Texas. The new map is set to hand Republicans 5 additional seats in the House, and it completely wiped Jasmine Crockett's seat right off the map. So I think that's good news if it sticks, of course. Texas House passes redistricting map. Jasmine Crockett will lose her seat. Life is wonderful, this guy says. So anyway, I'm not sure exactly what the KFC thing has to do with, but yeah, she's supposed to be ghetto, and then the truth has actually come out, though. She grew up quite the posh, you could say white lifestyle, very much like Obama did. Mrs. Obama, or you can define Obama however you want, but yeah, very much the affluent white lifestyle. And she's not a ghetto queen, but that, of course, is what she's pretending to be once she joined Congress. But I guess her seat is going away very soon. So we'll see, though, if that actually holds true. Not holding my breath on that one. All right. Now, I mentioned this story last week. This is further following up. The guy who ran over he did an illegal U-turn on his semi-truck and flattened 3 Americans. It says, justice is coming. This is on Vigilant Fox on Threadreader, but it's just a post from X is what it is. Justice is coming. An illegal alien killed 3 innocent Americans on a Florida highway. He ran to California thinking sanctuary laws would protect him. Florida hunted him down and dragged him out in shackles to face justice. Lieutenant Governor Collins sent direct message to Gavin Newsom. Quote, We are done with that Shiite. End quote. It's not actually Shiite. I'm just adding that. And that was just the beginning. So here's a picture of him in the airplane, I guess. By now, most people have seen the gut-wrenching footage. An illegal alien from India attempting to make a U-turn in a truck on a busy Florida highway, killing 3 innocent Americans. Today, the accountability began. Just before 2 p.m. Now, note this guy's name. Harjinder Singh. Okay? There will be a quiz in just a minute. Harjinder Singh was extradited from California to Florida. He was shackled and placed on a plane by Florida state authorities in Stockton, California. After fleeing the scene and hiding out in a sanctuary state, Singh is now being forced to face justice. That era of criminals hiding behind sanctuary protections is coming to an end. Well, we hope so. Anyway, there's Fox News video clip here covering that. Anyway, there's a little bit more information here and a couple more embedded videos on this Threadreader app post from the Vigilant Fox. Now, breaking outrageous new details in illegal Indian truck driver case just emerged. So, we're not ready for the quiz yet, but still, remember the guy's name. Well, here we go again. Another update in the horrifying case of the illegal Indian truck driver who killed 3 innocent Americans on the Florida Turnpike. And this is beyond infuriating. We've now learned that this man actually failed his road sign test, because he doesn't know English. Probably not a real big shocker, but he answered just 2 out of 12 questions correctly and only recognized 1 out of 4 traffic signs. Yet somehow, California still gave him a commercial driver's license and put him behind the wheel of a 60-ton death machine. This isn't just a tragic accident, it is a crisis. America's roads are being flooded with unqualified foreign drivers who can't even read English, let alone follow our laws. These are people coming from countries where driving is chaos. Yeah, I've been to a few. That is very true. Where traffic looks like the Wild West and there are no rules. Guys, I've been to Thailand before, and that is some crazy, crazy stuff. Just going down the road, you are definitely taking your life in your hands. There are no rules. So why on earth would anyone think that they suddenly became safe, responsible drivers here? We recently covered a story of yet another Indian truck driver arrested for killing an innocent American. We're sad to say this happened again. Another Indian commercial truck driver has been charged in a deadly crash that killed an innocent American. This crisis of foreign truck drivers on U.S. roads looks like it's going to get a lot worse before it gets any better. This is the American who was killed. Mr. Wilkerson was a volunteer firefighter and an EMT. Our hearts go out to his family. It was a totally preventable death. Mr. Wilkerson here. So very sad. And I do find it interesting that the 3 people that this guy killed, I've never seen any names come out on who they were. So I find that interesting, but maybe that has come out. I just haven't ever heard who that is, who they were. The driver, Mr. Parmar, has been charged with negligent homicide along with 5 other counts. He's not only accused of killing 1 man, but also injuring an entire car full of people. So, wow. Then there's some more information about what happened in that case as well. So, another really sad story here. All right. So then it gets a little crazier. This is where I said this will be the quiz. And don't worry, you won't actually receive a quiz. But check this out. Photos. Historic Arkansas bridge collapses after GPS leads trucker to span, meaning go across it. This was dated February 1st, 2019. A California man said his GPS led him down a 1-lane dirt road in rural Yell County, where the weight of his 18-wheeler collapsed a historic bridge. Right here, you can see it. Over the Petite Jean River on Wednesday night. Harjinder Singh, 35, of Corona, California, was ticketed for driving a truck that was 64,000 pounds too heavy for the bridge, said the dispatch supervisor at the sheriff's office. And she says GPS was wrong Singh says, GPS was wrong. I was sleeping. Then he hung up. Singh apparently meant he was sleeping when the reporter called him on Thursday, not when he was driving over the bridge, which that's probably a big question mark, actually. The dispatch supervisor said Singh had driven about 4 miles down this road before he got to the bridge, which is about 3 miles north of Ola, or Ola, as the crow flies. When he fully committed to the road, he couldn't have turned around. Yeah, but if there was a place where he could do a U-turn, he probably would have tried that. If Singh had crossed the bridge, he would have encountered 1 foot of water for the next 4 miles because the road was flooded. So anyway, you can see here that basically he decided to go on across because the GPS didn't say not to, and like the GPS would know that his truck is 64,000 pounds too heavy to go over this bridge. So, of course, the bridge collapses, which apparently is the same guy. There's still some question as to if it is, but pretty interesting that he has the exact same name as this guy. So that will be kind of an interesting unfolding situation. Let's see what happens. It's a strange one. Boom. Trump's English-only rule for truckers is here, but there is one huge problem. Trump isn't creating a new rule for truckers. What he's doing is enforcing rules that have already been on the books since the 1930s. The rule is simple and common sense. If you want to drive a commercial truck in the U.S., you must be able to read and speak English. It's almost absurd that this needs to be stated, right? Obviously, drivers need to understand road signs, talk to law enforcement, and communicate if there's an emergency. Yeah. So, yeah, clearly that is pretty important. However, all that changed in April 2025 when Trump signed an executive order that finally put teeth back into the law. When June rolled around and real law enforcement began, if drivers fail an English test, they're immediately taken off the road. No more free passes, according to this, based on this executive order that he signed in April. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. I think that's good news if it's actually applied. But yeah, the rule's already on the books. It's just a matter of will they apply it? I don't know. They probably still won't in blue states, is my guess. Wow. And of course, we always have to have an airplane story here on the Diamond Report. Wouldn't be a normal show if we didn't have one. American Airlines flight diverted after passenger's device catches fire. I saw this and I'm like, okay, well, it was probably some electronic something with a lithium battery is my guess, although it doesn't really say here. American Airlines flight on its way to Phoenix diverted to Washington Dulles International on Saturday after a passenger's device reportedly caught fire, according to the FAA. American Airlines said the flight landed safely at Dulles following reports of smoke from a customer's device. The device was quickly contained by crew members prior to landing. Officials did not specify what type of device it was. Emergency personnel met the aircraft on the runway when it landed around noon on Saturday. The passenger said in a video with ABC that she was seated in an exit row on the flight and was sleeping when she was awakened by one of the flight attendants jumping on her seat to get the fire extinguisher. So they didn't know whose it was, probably right at first. Then I started smelling smoke, and a lot of people on the plane were coughing. But I looked behind me, and what I could tell was there was something on fire in the aisle. The flight took off from Philadelphia and was headed to Phoenix. The airline said that there were 160 customers and 6 crew members on board. So they're investigating the incident. So how'd you like to be on a plane where stuff's catching fire? Well, that was obviously a passenger's item, but yeah, it just gets crazier, doesn't it? Probably something with the lithium battery. Those things are trouble. All right, and then this one from Gateway Pundit, just in. Biden appointed judge orders release of teens, quote unquote. This is from 3 days ago. Release of teens who violently attacked ex-Doge employee Edward Korestein, a.k.a., say it with me, Big Balls. D.C. Superior Court Judge Kendra Briggs, a Biden appointee, released 2 of the, quote, teens, which they were like 14 and 15, but get and understand that they had the right skin color, if you know what I mean. Earlier this month, 19-year-old Edward Korestein was severely beaten in D.C. after he jumped into action to save his significant other's life. Trump posted a photo of Korstein after he was badly beaten, bloody by the mob of teens. So, yeah. And then the report revealed more details about his heroic actions defending his girlfriend from a pack of 10 teens during an attempted carjacking earlier Sunday morning. And, of course, this has all resulted in the crackdown on the crime in D.C., of which many reports coming in are saying that the people of Washington, D.C., and who live in that area love it. They love being able to go out and eat dinner. Something as trivial as that we all take for granted. Oh, it was just too dangerous in many places. Of course, not everywhere in D.C., but certainly in some areas. And then this one I thought was kind of interesting, just one of those wacky stories. Bills owner, as in Buffalo Bills owner, spotted. Buffalo Bills is a NFL football team. Bills owner spotted on $100 million yacht after getting New Yorkers to pay for his stadium. Should taxpayers fund stadiums for NFL team owners? This just in, NFL team owners are ridiculously rich. Yes, they always get the taxpayers of the local area to foot the bill. The owner of the Buffalo Bills, Terry Pagula, has ridiculously rich to a new level. He's worth nearly $8 billion, at least, was spotted on his yacht off the coast of Newport, Rhode Island. Makes sense, he's a billionaire, and when billionaires run out of other things to buy, they buy yachts. His yacht is worth an estimated $100 million. Good for him, right? Well, yes, of course, he's entitled to spend his money on whatever he wants. He's extremely wealthy, and someone has to support the yachting industry, right? The issue, though, has some very unhappy Bills fans and New York taxpayers pointed out on social media that this guy, Paluga, is enjoying having your average New Yorker pay for nearly 40% of Highmark Stadium in Buffalo. 40%. Not the best look to show off how much disposable income you have when asking for handouts from taxpayers, is it? There he is right there. Terry Pagula. Exemplifies problem with modern stadium financing. Yes, they're getting ready to do that here in Nashville where I am. And of course, that always means they're going to raise people's property taxes so we pay for it. And the rich people can just go on like a little blip in the map. They'll never miss it. But no, we'll feel it in the old property taxes. You watch. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when that actually happens. But it's underway now. All right. Headline USA. Here's back to the woke Cracker Barrel here. Dems hop on the anti-woke bandwagon after Cracker Barrel backlash. So this is kind of surprising. We think the Cracker Barrel rebrand sucks too, the Democrats said. So you know it's bad when they don't even support it. As comfort food restaurant Cracker Barrel continues its long-running mission to become the next Bud Light, under Girl Boss CEO Julie Fels-Massino, Democrats are pouncing on the opportunity for a rebrand of their own. So this is on their Twitter, the Democrats, as in at the Democrats. We think the Cracker Barrel rebrand sucks too, officially. So how about that? We can actually agree with something the Democrats say. We think the Cracker Barrel rebrand sucks too. The party posted on an official X account. The Southern-style comfort food restaurant's stock dipped by double digits in August as the company rolled out the next leg of a major rebrand to modernize its menu and ambiance. Yeah, it's going full-on woke. So yeah, but remember, the CEO is saying how the response has really only been positive. Of course, she's living in La La Land. That's not at all truth. But doesn't keep her from lying about it, does she? Headlines on information liberation. Netanyahu, we have to do something about the algorithms at the social networks. This is dated from 3 days ago, but yes, they're a little afraid that certain social networks are able to allow postings of people being critical of Israel, and that should not be allowed, Bibi thinks. So Bibi says in an interview released Wednesday, he pushed for social media censorship to stop 21st century blood libels, quote unquote, such as the claim that Israel is starving children in Gaza. We've all seen the pictures. Of course they are. But no, he says, don't believe your lion eyes. That's not happening. And simply gaslighting you to the extreme and saying, you cannot say what's actually happening and we're going to censor you. That's what he wants. All right, next headline here. Trump administration to screen immigrants for anti-Semitic ideologies. Immigrants. I thought the immigrants, well, maybe it's the immigrants that are already here. I don't know. The Trump administration on Tuesday announced that the U.S. government going forward will be screening immigrants for anti-Semitic ideologies when they apply to live or work in the U.S. So there you go. If you're already a citizen of the U.S., though, I don't know what would happen. Would they deport us somewhere? I don't know. Israeli child predator suspect told feds he had plans to fly back to Israel, yet was still allowed to flee. We mentioned this last week, actually. I think it was just happening as we did last week's show on Monday. Newly obtained arrest documents reveal that Tom Alexandrovich, an Israeli official arrested in a multi-agency child predator sting in Nevada earlier this month, in Vegas, told a Homeland Security investigator and FBI special agent that he had plans to fly back to Israel. Yet, his passport wasn't seized, and he was allowed to flee the country. Yeah, it's fine. He's Israeli. He can do anything he wants. So it's one of those situations where the rules do not apply for him. It's okay when he does it. So yeah, we've got a little bit more on that as we move forward here. On one of my mini tabs across the top of the screen, a couple RT articles here. Pentagon has blocked Ukraine from striking Russian territory, according to the Wall Street Journal. The reported restrictions have been part of Trump's renewed push for peace talks. Well, you probably saw the very first story that I mentioned tonight, that Zelensky is already going back on everything that was said. So we'll see where this goes. Will Trump allow him to do that and still continue funding things, is what many people are wondering. The Pentagon has blocked Ukraine from striking deep inside Russia with American-supplied missiles. Wall Street Journal reported Saturday. Yeah, but the whole Zelensky thing happened today. According to the paper, the Department of Defense has been preventing Kiev from firing long-range ATACMS missiles since late spring. So they've wanted to. On at least one occasion, Washington reportedly turned down a Ukrainian request to hit a target on Russia's internationally recognized territory. Wow. So, again, we'll see where it goes. I don't know. Zelensky is still there, so maybe Trump will push for his removal or something. I don't know. If he wants to continue the war secretly and is only just talking about having peace, then I guess things will continue on and nothing will change. So we'll see where it goes. It's an RT article, RT.com. Netanyahu is winning in Gaza and losing the West. So again, that's back to why he's trying to make sure that all the social media companies are censoring what you say, because they're losing the West. As Europe edges toward recognition of Palestine and Trump shows signs of impatience, Israel's uncompromising war risks turning into a lonely fight. Yeah, well, without the backing of Big Brother, meaning the USA, it can't really go on. So, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's going to be stopped or not, but again, we'll see. It's definitely getting biblical out there, isn't it? This week, the Israeli army launched a full-scale ground operation to seize the city of Gaza. The plan is ambitious and ruthless. So the date on this is the 23rd, so just yesterday. 60,000 new reservists will be called up, and another 20,000 troops will have their service extended. For Netanyahu, this is a necessary step, quote-unquote, to ensure Israel's security. For the international community, it looks like a gamble that could push Israel into near-total isolation. So that is actually biblical when the world turns on what Israel is doing, and I feel like that is happening now. Very quickly, actually. Many people are not supporting Israel when they did before, based on what's going on in Gaza. So it'll be interesting for sure. People know that this October 7th, 2023 Hamas attack was a total stand down. They allowed it to happen so that they could go in and bomb Gaza back to the Stone Age and literally take it. I heard something on a recent InfoWars show that said, wasn't Alex, but it was somebody else, was talking about the missing people, actually it was on Hal Turner's show is what it was, the missing people in Gaza, that it's like 800,000 people missing. It's not like thousands of people that are being reported. Tens of thousands are being reported dead or missing, but apparently it's upper six figures. So I don't know. I'm not sure if that's true or not. No one really knows. I mean, they're probably, they flattened so much of Gaza. There's probably thousands and thousands of bodies laying in the rubble there that they can't even get to, because the moment people go in and try and pull bodies from the rubble, they get bombed again. So anyway, that is a RT article. And then this one, I thought the headline was a little peculiar. Epstein didn't kill himself, so says ex-partner, which of course they're referring to Ghislaine Maxwell. The late financier's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, has told U.S. investigators that she doesn't believe the official version of his death. Yeah, I don't know if she would know if he is not actually dead or not. I kind of doubt it, because it could slip out. But I personally think he's still alive. And I know many of you guys out there think so as well. Jeffrey Epstein's confidant and partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, I would say she was probably the one that was the boss, and he was working for her because of her daddy, which was Maxwell was a very, very famous Mossad agent. And it says, Maxwell has said that she does not believe disgraced financier and convicted sex offender committed suicide behind bars. So I think that's where it ended, though. She just said, no, she didn't think that he did that. I do not believe he died by suicide, no. She dismissed the idea that an outside party could have ordered a hit. If it is indeed murder, I believe it was an internal situation. So yeah, so she's saying that it wasn't a hit if he was killed. It was an internal situation. So pretty interesting. Kind of walking the fine line here. But of course, she doesn't want to say anything that upsets Trump in case he's willing to give her that pardon that she wants so badly. I don't know. I don't personally think she'll get a pardon, but man, if he pardons her, that would be political suicide if he does that. I don't think he will. I don't think he's that dumb, but maybe he is. Don't mark my words on that one. We've seen him do some pretty dumb stuff. All right, this is a site that I mention often on this show, Daily Crow, by a friend of mine, I guess you could call him, an acquaintance. Matt Peterson runs this site, and he was kind enough to post one of my YouTube videos on his site today. So you'll see it here across the very top of the screen. The red heifer sacrifice has been made, which is a clip right from last week's show. You may remember it if you saw it. The red heifer sacrifice has been made. Next will be the third temple construction on Temple Mount. So if you click that link, you get my video right here. So how about that? So thank you to Mr. Matt there for posting that on his really good site, dailycrow.com. You find all kinds of really good information. He posts things that have to do with Christianity in particular, but also just things that are happening in the world, much like this show. And we traded emails earlier today, and he said that he was not aware of me, and then he said that my content was something that he was very much in tune with. So I think that is really good news for the Diamond Report. So we'll see if he happens to post anything else on dailycrow.com, but if he does, I would say thank you to him in advance. So that's really, really cool of him to do. It's an excellent site, and you can go back in the archives here, clear back to 2018. So he's got them here on dailycrow.com. Lots and lots and lots of headlines there. All right. And then let's see here. This was another article that I found from his site. God is not blessing America for supporting Israel. He is cursing America for supporting Israel. This is something we touched on last week. Lindsey Graham says that God will curse the U.S. if it stops supporting Israel. So we mentioned this last week. I don't really want to go clear back into that again. But this article on global research is pretty good, and it talks about some of the actual truth to what's happening. Spirituality here says, tell me, does our society overall have more or less reverence for God and his holy word today than in 1948, which is when the nation state of Israel was started? Are Christians more or less loving, more or less grounded in sound doctrine, more or less humble, or more or less dedicated to practicing their faith than in 1948? I'd say it's definitely gone the other way, wouldn't you? Is church attendance growing or declining compared to 1948? Are atheism and agnosticism growing or declining compared to 1948, again, when Israel was started? Does the church have more or less influence on the children of America than in 1948? The church. Does the church have more or less influence on the culture today than it did in 1948? These are all obviously rhetorical questions here. Do the American people generally have more or less regard for the church and spiritual things today than they did in 1948? Yet again, you know the answers to these questions. God is not blessing America for supporting Israel. He's cursing America for supporting Israel and for many other reasons. Yeah, that's just a little piece of this entire article. Now, the church has its own problems, obviously. There is a lot that you could look at in the Bible, in particular, I guess, Book of Revelation, where it's the church that is really problematic here. So it's, in a sense, it is definitely part of the unfolding of the biblical end times here, that the church would become less influenced. But is it because we have been supporting Israel so much? I would say probably so, at least in part. God is allowing that to happen. Anyway, I thought it was kind of an interesting article. Globalresearch.ca is where that one is. Now, we were talking about Israel, and I came across this one, and I had a really good laugh. It's kind of sad and very sick, but it is funny when you think about it. Israel considers military recruitment inside the USA as soldier shortages persist. So I thought, so we're saying here that Israel is going to be allowed to draft Americans? Is that where we're going with this? Well, in a way. It says, amid an enduring soldier shortage as an all-out occupation of Gaza looms, the IDF are considering a campaign to recruit soldiers from Jewish populations living in the U.S. and other countries. So that's what this article is talking about. According to Israeli Army Radio, the state media outlet, Israel may mount an effort to recruit 600 to 700 Jews per year from the diaspora, a term referring to Jews living somewhere other than Israel. At first, Israel would concentrate its effort in the U.S. and France, the countries with the two largest Jewish populations at roughly 6 million and 450,000, respectively. So that's an interesting number. There's 6 million Jews in the U.S. Where else have we heard that number? I don't know. Just kind of a coincidence, I guess. But yeah, the IDF wants to draft Americans for their wars. And probably leave it to Trump here. He will most likely allow it to happen, unfortunately. He may even make sure it all gets set up. Yeah, that one's kind of hard to believe in a way, but the way things are unfolding, I wouldn't put it past him, for sure. And I saw this one and thought I would mention it for those of you who have little ones, either in your house or in your, families, various families' homes. Babies in homes with high levels of wireless radiation have triple the risk of developmental delays. Extremely concerning. So, Wi-Fi and so forth. A study of 105 babies in India showed that those who lived in homes with high and medium levels of wireless radiation, including Wi-Fi, routers, cell phones, and nearby cell towers, which is pretty much everybody everywhere, exhibited, on average, worse fine motor, communication, and problem-solving skills than babies in homes with lower levels of wireless radiation. And I've said it before, and if possible, I would suggest that you shut off your wireless routers at night. Shut off the Wi-Fi aspect of it. Oftentimes you can turn just that part of it off at night, and then you'll get a nice peaceful rest. Of course, if you have little ones, they may or may not be sleeping at night. They might be up at all hours. But that's one thing you can do, is turn your Wi-Fi off at night. That would help tremendously in situations like this. But it's this study that they're talking about here was published July 10th. Says, having data to show that the normal development of children is under assault by a nearby antenna or Wi-Fi router should alert the public to this dire situation. I don't think it's anything that our mainstream media will report on, do you? Children are more affected by strong wireless radiation than adults, according to the author's reports. Since children have a developing nervous system with high water content and ion concentration, their brain tissue is more susceptible to impairment due to the energy emitted from the cell phones held next to the head than that of adults. So if you're putting your cell phone up to your head, you are asking for brain cancer. Don't ever do that if you can help it. Turn on the speaker, the speaker situation on a cell phone instead of talking directly into it, and put it on a table. Try not to hold it if possible. About twice as much mobile phone energy is absorbed in the peripheral brain tissues of children as compared to adults. So anyway, we'll definitely link to this in the Substack post, but it's another Vigilant Fox article on Substack, which is really good. It's a good Substack to follow as well. Now, I mentioned this guy earlier. Israeli-born acting U.S. attorney for Nevada declines to prosecute Israeli arrested in child predator sting, passing the case to the local DA, which this is the lady that we mentioned last week. Acting U.S. attorney for Nevada, Sigal Chetta, is an Israeli-born appointee of Donald Trump. Enough said there. On Monday, announced that her office would not be prosecuting Israeli child predator suspect Tom Alexandrovich and would instead allow the local district attorney to handle the case. So isn't that nice? So he gets a pass. And that's what happens. Anyway, that is an Information Liberation article. I actually mentioned it a little bit ago, but I did because I wanted to point you to this. This is a screenshot that I came across. Actually, this was on Daily Crow as well. This is from ChatGPT, but it's an interesting screenshot. Here's what this Tom Alexandrovich, who was ostensibly the pedophile in this situation, ended up returning to Israel. Tom Alexandrovich wasn't just some random tech bureaucrat. He was a senior executive in Israel's National Cyber Directorate. No wonder he got to go home. Directly involved in active cyber defense, cyber threat intelligence, and international cyber liaison work, according to his own resume and LinkedIn before it was wiped. He founded and led the, quote, Cyber Dome program, Israel's national-level cyber defense architecture. He directed Israel's active cyber defense center with responsibility for threat hunting, versatility, vulnerability research, and liaison with international tech companies. He was acting head of data and AI for the directorate, meaning he oversaw AI-driven cyber ops, including disinformation, social media monitoring, and content control. Managed international partnerships with 12 countries specifically for information sharing and cyber threat response. That directorate operates under the Prime Minister's office, Netanyahu, and one of its official functions is exactly what Grok pointed out, filing takedown and censorship requests with platforms like X, Meta, Google, etc., under the banner of, quote, cyber defense and, quote, anti-terrorism. So yes, it's not just speculation. Alexandrovich literally worked in the branch of Israel's government that has direct channels to platforms like X for content removal. So yes, the plot thickens. No wonder he was returned to Israel. And that's from ChatGPT, if you can believe that, of course. But, anytime you do a search on ChatGPT or any of the other AI platforms, you do end up with usually tons and tons of links, and they're live hyperlinks to various articles in other parts of the world. So my guess is this is probably true. So it's no wonder the guy's getting a pass and allowed to go back to Israel. Scary stuff. All right, I was talking about Daily Crow a little bit ago, and the reason that I emailed the guy that runs Daily Crow, Matt, was because I wanted to thank him for posting a link to Anthony Patch and his most recent public video, All Roads Lead to Moscow. So that is available on Anthony Patch's YouTube channel, which you can find. And I help Anthony with all things video and audio and web. So he's a good friend of mine and been working with him for a long time. So it was very nice of thedailycrow.com to post a link to All Roads Lead to Moscow. Thought that was cool. Anyway, I'll link to this in the Substack post so you guys can check it out as well. So yeah, it's another interesting one. Anthony puts out some really good and mind-provoking content for sure. So anyway, and then WNG.org, from the section of the site called The Sift, Trump had no role in Epstein crimes, Maxwell told investigators. So yes, she does want her pardon, and she's playing into the whole Trump-Epstein thing by saying, no, he had nothing to do with it, and maybe he didn't, but she's certainly out there saying, no, he didn't. Department of Justice on Friday published its July interview with Ghislaine Maxwell. Yes, the transcripts are out there, by the way. I didn't pull them up, but they are available. The trove includes written transcriptions of 9 hours of interviews spread out over 2 days. Transcripts. Includes audio recordings of the interviews conducted in Florida by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. In her testimony, Maxwell contended that President Trump had no part in Epstein's crimes and disclosed no information implicating the president. Because why would she? If she did that, she would never get a pardon. So yes, she is not dumb. She was found guilty in 2021 of trafficking underage girls and helping to sexually exploit them. She is serving out a 20-year sentence that was recently relocated to a minimum security prison facility in Texas. So that was her almost get out of jail free card there. She got put in a almost no security prison now. So perhaps she will continue staying there. I don't know. I'm hoping that he's not dumb enough to give her a pardon, but you just never know at this point. Anyway, that's on WNG.org. LeoHoman.com. American cities are falling to Islam as politicians rail against Russia and Putin. Minneapolis mayor candidate Omar Fateh, I guess. This is him here. Recently attended a campaign rally with scores of rabid Somali supporters, and by the looks of it, could just have easily been held in Mogadishu. I think that's the whole point. It's also known as Minnesota. Fateh has been referred to by some as the Mamdani of the Midwest, as a reference to his hard-left views, similar to that of Zohran Mamdani in the New York City mayoral race. So yes, that's where it's going. If you are in Minneapolis, this guy might be your next mayor. That would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? Sure would. Trump's lost cause. This is Leo's Substack, Leo Homan's Substack. Trump's lost cause, why Ukraine and Europe will never make peace with Russia. So back to Ukraine here for a minute. If a deal is struck, it will not lead to a lasting peace because Europe's leaders have it in their heads that their continued existence as a global power depends on Russia's strategic defeat. Never going to happen. But of course, they think it will. Don't be fooled by all the positioning and repositioning by America's European partners, quote unquote, with regard to Russia and Ukraine. A lot of what has been said over the last week about how much all the parties involved want peace, whether it's Trump, Putin, Zelensky, Macron, Starmer, Maloney, or Mertz, they all claim to want the killing to stop, but actions speak louder than words. Remember the old saying, money talks and BS walks. Yeah, you can also just say, look at their fruit. Look at their fruit that they're producing. As a journalist, I learned long ago to follow the money, and I don't see any real desires to permanently settle the score between Russia and Ukraine. Trump may want to end it, but he's kidding himself if he thinks he can. Why? Because he owes too many political favors to neocons in his own party for whom priority number one is continuing to escalate the war with Russia. War is what makes them money and keeps them in office. It keeps them in office by enriching their donors. So anyway, that's just a little bit of this article, and I'm sure many of you guys would agree with that. Yeah, I think he's definitely onto something there. I don't think that any of the people, and we saw the picture last week of pursuing peace. We saw the picture of the European leaders and how ticked off they were to even have to be there talking about peace. But clearly they don't actually want peace. So he's going to be outvoted and outnumbered, if you ask me. Of course, he can pull the plug on the funding, so it would remain to be seen if he actually does that. That could stop everything. So he does still have more power than just one vote. But we'll see. And then this one also on Leo's Substack, they're coming for your kids and grandkids. OpenAI signs deal with leading toy maker Mattel. New corporate partners plan to use AI to reimagine the future of play. If you thought AI poses a threat to people's jobs, professional statuses, and social lives, you'd be right. But it's not just adults being affected. Kids are in the crosshairs of the technocrats' latest mind-manipulating tool. And what better way to do that than to incorporate AI into kids' toys? Well, it's already being done. Children's toy company Mattel announced on June 12th that it will partner with OpenAI to support AI-powered products and experiences for Mattel's brands of children's toys, which of course is ChatGPT, which of course is 110% woke. So there you go. So just be aware. There's more info here on this Substack post from Leo. So yeah, it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be in everything. So it's up to us to say no. And especially, when the little kids are going to want those toys. So that'll be real tough. That'll be quite the test, won't it? It will be for some parents, for sure. And it's hard to tell your kid no, but man, when you realize what's going on with that, where it's going, it is not good. And then this is another Substack. I mentioned this guy before, John Fleetwood. He does some good research, I think. Macabre, Gates-funded study chemically embalms newborn corpses for weeks to harvest tissues for AI, forensics, and global surveillance. Journal Forensic Science, Medicine, and Pathology. Openly promotes infant tissue harvesting as a forensic tool for SIDS, homicides, and, quote, suspicious deaths, while calling for the samples to be digitized and fed into UN-linked AI surveillance systems. So talk about an abject nightmare. That's what this is. And, of course, who's at the root of all of these abject nightmares? Bill Gates, of course. Gates Foundation-funded autopsy project published last week in Forensic Science, Medicine, and Pathology, here's the link here if you want it, reveals newborn corpses were chemically embalmed for weeks so their organs could be harvested, cataloged, and standardized into databases tied to AI, forensic investigations, and global mortality surveillance programs. The new study comes after Gates financed the Baby Open Brains project. And I think he probably means literally, don't you? Where researchers at the Masonic Institute for Developing Brain, how about that name? The Masonic Institute for the Developing Brain released MRI scans of infants as young as 1 month old into global AI databases to build the backbone for a nationwide government brain tracking program. Brain tracking. Yeah. And then, where the infant corpses come from, and chemicals, and forensics, and AI, and it's all here. John Fleetwood does some really good research, so we'll link to that Substack post as well, but you guys can find it if you're on Substack. Just look up John Fleetwood, or you can go to his website, I guess, johnfleetwood.com. So that is some scary stuff right there. Horror movie, doesn't it? Sounds like it should be a horror movie if it's not already. And this one, many people out there will like this article. Eat the steak. Study shows plant protein is not healthier than animal protein. I had kind of a run-in with this earlier in the week. I don't eat red meat, as I've mentioned before. I haven't for many years. But I was recently enjoying a protein bar and realized that the protein that was in the protein bar was soy. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's not good. That is not real protein. That is plant protein. So anyway, needless to say, I wasn't too happy about that. You're standing in the grocery aisle, staring down a wall of protein bars, pea protein powders, and plant-based burgers, and grass-fed beef labels, each one screaming conflicting health claims. Eat more plants, go keto, beware of the steak. For years, the narrative has been clear. Animal protein is a one one-way ticket to an early grave. That's what they always say. While plant protein is the golden child of longevity, but what if the script was wrong all along? How about that? Well, that would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? If they told us to avoid animal protein and only eat plant protein, of course. And you know, next will be bug protein. Will be incredibly healthy for us. And forget the plant protein, you just need bug protein. That's where it's going. Groundbreaking study published in Applied Physiology, Nutrition and Metabolism has just dropped a bombshell. Animal protein isn't the villain we've been led to believe. In fact, it might even offer protection against cancer, which would be a good reason that Big Pharma would not want you to eat animal protein. Of course, it depends on the protein, I suppose. Meanwhile, plant protein, not the panacea it's been hyped up to be. The research drawing from nearly 16,000 adults found no link between animal protein and higher mortality risk, and a surprising inverse associated with cancer deaths. That's right. People who ate more animal protein were less likely to die from cancer. So there you go. Anyway, more info here on this site. The Great Protein Deception, it's being called. And it's funny that I just kind of ran across this article because I had this same thing crop up this week as well. Pretty wild. Another Natural News article, report Trump administration orders military to prepare strike plans against Mexican cartels. So the president of peace is at it again. We're going to be, I guess, bombing the Gazans some more and bombing the Russians some more. And as I reported earlier tonight, probably doing something, bombing the Venezuelans, I guess, before too long. And now we're going to be bombing the Mexican cartels, supposedly. So let's see here. Trump administration has issued a classified directive instructing the DOD to prepare for possible lethal operations inside Mexico, targeting drug cartels with plans expected by mid-September. Coordinated with the CIA, FBI, DHS, and Border Patrol, the strike operations reportedly include precision drone strikes, airstrikes, and direct action by elite special operations forces such as Navy SEALs and Army Green Berets. So something, again, to watch out for. It's appearing that there's going to be some sort of action against the Mexican drug cartels, which, of course, the Jewish lady who's running Mexico said there's no way she's going to allow that. So I don't know. I mean, Mexican government is known for being very corrupt, so they could ostensibly pay her off or pay them off at that level and then do it anyway. But who knows? Who knows where it's going? I mean, it could be, something that the Trump administration steps into that's a really, really bad scenario. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes. That's on Natural News as well. And I wanted to mention this one in case you guys wanted to listen to it. How to restore youthful cognition, healing, and strength with peptide therapy. So this is on Brighteon. This is a video on Brighteon, and I just happened to stop it on this slide, on this picture, as I fast forwarded through the video, and lo and behold, there's a diamond on there. Thought that was kind of weird. Health. So pretty wild, but that is on Health Ranger Report on Brighteon. So we'll link to this in the Substack post that I send out too. Now, speaking of Mike Adams and the Health Ranger Report, came across this week. This is something he has been promoting because it's now available. And I know many of you guys have nothing good to say and would never want to touch AI with a 10-foot pole, and that's fine. I totally understand that. I'm not trying to convince you of anything otherwise. However, I would say that if you're going to wade into the water, this would be the best way to go, because Mike Adams, Natural News, has a website called Brighteon.ai, and they've now introduced this new AI called Enoch, which he's specifically said just in the last few days that they spent $2 million putting this together, and it is a non-woke AI to compete with the information that ChatGPT and Grok and some of the others are spitting out. So there is an option here that will give you actual real information based on not just Natural News articles, but articles from the alternative media that has been fed into it. Says Enoch is more than a chatbot. It's your personalized health, wellness, and preparedness coach with tools that work for real life. It has a daily meal planner, natural supplements and ingredients finder, simply scientific journals, grocery shopping coach, personalized wellness plans, longevity roadmap, master gardener, ingredient checker, root causes when you have symptoms of things, and natural solutions. Why is Enoch different? Enoch AI. No censorship, no woke bias, just truth. Mainstream AI models filter and hide controversial natural health topics. Enoch AI delivers uncensored, actionable knowledge backed by science, traditional wisdom, and decades of research. Built for truth seekers, not corporations. Trained on uncensored studies, naturopathic content. So how about that? Survivalist guides and 20 plus years of investigative natural health journalism. Enoch's insights are grounded in evidence, not corporate spin, unlike Grok and ChatGPT. A voice for banned knowledge. Where other AI warns you away, Enoch equips you with practical, life-saving solutions such as IV vitamin C protocols, ozone therapy, water purification skills, and natural antibiotic and detox methods. And then it talks more about some of the other details about it. Totally free. That's what's nice about it. Totally free, and you guys can check it out if you want to, or if you're too scared of it. I totally understand. It is what it is. But it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And if you want to be using things like Grok and ChatGPT, then your results are going to be highly questionable at best. Whereas at least with Enoch, if you're going to use some sort of AI, this might be a better option. And then there's a video here where he is talking about it and goes through everything and gives some real world examples of how it works. And again, it's totally free. So I signed up for it as well. I haven't used it yet, so I will, as soon as I do, I will report back and see what kind of results I find. But in his video here that's embedded, introducing Enoch AI, it's pretty impressive. And it has been trained on some really, really good information. So anyway, that is on discover.healthrangerstore.com/Enoch. That's the long link. Or you could just go to brighteon.ai and you'll see it there. Pretty cool. And then here's where you can ask it anything. Enoch is currently rated at 80% alignment with reality-based test scenarios. And then it explains what all that is on here. So, yeah, and there is an upgrade where you can pay to do some of these other upgrades, but the base version of Enoch is free, so that's good. The paid thing is interesting how it works. I kind of looked at it just to see how it actually worked on their system, and it's all based around the Health Ranger store. So if you're already buying products from there, you could have paid level access on Enoch AI just by default if you're already buying stuff from Mike's store. So that seems to be where they're going with it, versus a subscription model where you're paying X amount per month. But yeah, everything that you want to do, really for the most part, is totally free. So anyway, have a look at that if you guys are interested. I thought it was kind of neat. I mean, it's good to have another choice, you know. WinePress Substack. Top article, Techno-Fascism. Trump administration announces it has purchased 10% stake in Intel. Why Intel? So fascism should more appropriately be called corporatism because it is a merger of state and corporate power. So says Mussolini. I think he knows what he's talking about. Anyway, yeah, so they've stepped into purchasing stakes in tech companies who are kind of flailing around a little bit. Intel, of course, has been having their own issues. So, and then here's another one. Dead internet theory. YouTube is quietly using AI to alter content without permission. They can't make AI look fully real, so they're making real look AI. So that is an interesting one. Again, something to keep in mind when you have everything in the Big Brother system. It can be manipulated, as we found out in 1984, right? So, yeah. So they're making real look AI instead of looking AI look fully real. So something to look at on WinePress, on Substack. Now, this is more about this crazy Indian, or whatever he is, driver, Harjinder Singh, insanity. Over 2.3 million people signed petition begging for clemency for illegal truck driver who killed 3 Americans, suggesting counseling and community service instead. 2.3 million people. So I saw that and I'm like, okay, there has to be a reason here. Harjinder Singh, an illegal alien truck driver, killed 3 Americans after he made a illegal U-turn on a Florida highway. The Punjabi driver, who obtained his CDL, commercial truck driving license, in the Democrat-run sanctuary state of California, made an insane U-turn in Florida's turnpike near Fort Pierce that caused the crash. Anyway, yeah, this is saying that, again, he couldn't read the road signs and so forth, which we covered all that earlier. Says Singh has been charged with 3 counts of vehicular homicide, a second-degree felony in Florida. Each count carries a potential penalty of up to 15 years in prison, for a total of a possible 45 years if convicted on all counts. He also faces additional manslaughter charge. So, wow. And again, they've never come out and said who they were, who those 3 people were. I've never heard. I'm sure they probably did somewhere, but I've only heard about the driver of the truck. So I don't know. But I think where I was going with this was, it seems to be that this 2.3 million people signing this petition, which is on, change.org. That is a George Soros website company, change.org. But even more importantly, a lot of the 2.3 million people apparently were Indians, people from India. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't think it's necessarily Americans voting for this. So yeah, they're trying to get the law to back off and leave the guy alone. I think that's bad news. Bad news. All right, let's see here. Trump administration allegedly gives MS-13 gangbanger Kilmar Abrego Garcia an ultimatum as he faces deportation to Uganda. They're going to send him to Uganda. It appears the left's favorite illegal alien will get to choose his destiny, as the Trump administration has allegedly given him an ultimatum. Says the Gateway Pundit reported the MS-13 gang member Garcia may be deported to the East African country of Uganda after he was released from a Tennessee jail on Friday. Yes, he was apparently being held not too far from where I'm sitting here. According to Fox News, DHS notified Garcia that his deportation will happen no earlier than 72 hours from now. So this is articles dated yesterday. So we'll see. It says Garcia has reportedly headed back to Maryland to be with family. So he's back in Maryland at the moment. The Ugandan government announced earlier this week that it struck a deal with the Trump administration to accept third country deportees from America. Kind of like El Salvador is doing. However, the African nation's foreign minister issued a caveat. Uganda will not welcome individuals with criminal records and unaccompanied minors, and prefers individuals from African countries. So they only want the nice criminals in Uganda. So I guess that's a pretty good caveat, I suppose, if you're them. We'll still take the money, give us all the money, but we only want the nice criminals. So anyway, yeah, so it kind of remains to be seen where all that goes. But as of right now, he faces deportation by the Trump administration. And my guess is they will probably keep the word on that guy, because he is a big-time poster child of the left and the Democrats. They really like Kilmar Abrego Garcia for some reason. So anyway, he's the gangbanger, and I guess they really like those guys. We have broken no laws in the United States. 4chan refuses to pay fines to UK's media regulator Ofcom in another show of resistance to Draconian Online Safety Act. So yeah, 4chan. Censorship mad UK is going after US tech companies. Again, who's in charge over there in the UK? Who is it again? There's an ongoing struggle in the Trump administration to keep UK Prime Minister Starmer's censorship push from encroaching into U.S. citizens' liberties. We have reported on how the Trump administration warns UK censorship-mad Starmer not to threaten U.S. tech companies with his Online Safety Act. While some progress has been made, on the whole, Starmer is on the same path that led Musk to say last November that the UK has gone full Stalin, which I think they definitely have. The latest chapter in the Labour Party's shenanigans in their draconian Online Safety Act, which is a joke, has been launched against online platform 4chan. Today, a lawyer representing the message board said 4chan will not pay proposed fines by UK's media regulator. So they are imposing a £20,000 fine with daily penalties thereafter. So that's the rub there. That's what, all of these government organizations and outfits like that do, is they do the daily. You're accruing a daily balance. You're going to have penalties every single minute that you don't pay us. And they can just continue to jack it up and up and up and up. So that £20,000 fine will be in the multiple millions before too long. You watch. So we'll see where it goes. Says Ofcom's notices create no legal obligation in the United States. He told the BBC, adding he believed the regulator's investigation was part of an illegal campaign of harassment against U.S. tech firms. Yeah. So anyway, 4chan has broken no laws in the United States. So that is the first shoe to drop, at least. That's the first one I've heard of, where the UK censorship Stasi are out there trying to make American companies pay up. So I don't know. I don't think it's not looking too good. Especially when the guy that's in charge over there, King Charles III, actually becomes the biblical Antichrist. This whole system will already be in place. And then it will be, instead of a fine, it will be say what we approve or die. That's where it's going, I think. My opinion, of course. This one, I saw the headline and I couldn't not report it. I mean, it's comedy gold. Another Gateway Pundit article. New moon discovered orbiting Uranus. James Webb Telescope unveils tiny celestial body. So the new moon apparently is tiny. Astronomers have identified a previously undetected moon circling Uranus. I just love saying that. Anyway, yeah. That's probably all we need on that whole article. No, I'm just joking. But it is pretty interesting. And space is always an amazement. And yes, I know it doesn't exist and it's all fake and all that stuff. That moon actually does look pretty fake if you look at it. You'd have thought they'd have come out with a better fake picture if they were going to fake it all. Anyway, that is the new moon that is currently orbiting Uranus. So there you go. New controversy, or as they say in Britain, controversy. Minnesota Vikings male cheerleaders dance with female counterparts in same bathroom. So if you thought Minnesota was losing it, they are definitely losing it. They have male cheerleaders. There's a fresh controversy regarding the Minnesota Vikings' decision to add male cheerleaders to their squad. I wonder what the feedback will be on this, because it is a pretty blue area, but the NFL, well, the NFL is very woke, of course, but the NFL fans in general are highly conservative for the most part. So it will be interesting. It says Western Journal reported that Louis Kahn and Blaze Sheik are part of the 2025-2026 Vikings cheerleader squad. Both men appear repeatedly on the team and team-affiliated Instagram accounts, including the official lineup photos. So they're becoming famous or infamous. The team's cheer page also lists them alongside female members without distinction. And here they are. I won't subject you to it, don't worry. But it is there. If you wanted to be tortured, you can watch them dancing and cheering. I want no part of it personally, but yeah, that is what's happening in the good old NFL, or the good old NFL. So I don't know if the other teams are going to be doing that, but my guess is if there's any kind of what would be perceived as success at all, the other teams will probably be made to do it or lose some of their whatever freebies that they get from the NFL, or who knows. NFL is a highly woke organization, so they're all for this nonsense. Anyway, all right. Again, we are living in the end times, and further proof that we are living in the end times is this guy, rapper who embraced Satan and mocked Jesus, arrested and hospitalized after apparent mental breakdown. You don't suppose. Lil Nas X attends the 36th annual GLAAD Media Awards in Beverly Hills. So this guy, you may remember, well, hopefully you don't, but maybe you do remember, says maybe, just maybe, it turns out that mockery and rejection of traditional religious and social norms is, in fact, negatively correlated with your health. Correlation is not causation, of course, but the latest sad example of this phenomenon is Montero Lamar Hill, that's his real name, better known by his nom de rap, Lil Nas X, Lilnas X. I guess that's how you say it. Hill's songs haven't just embraced what the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation once charitably called an unapologetic look at QUEER love and lust. In doing so, he's also embraced satanic imagery and explicitly denigrated Christianity, such as giving the devil a lap dance. Oh, I think it was worse than that. In this video called Montero, or mocking Jesus by presenting himself as a savior in the song and video for, I guess, his song called J Christ. So he's putting himself in the place of Jesus. Now, according to multiple reports, the rapper has been arrested and hospitalized after walking the streets of Los Angeles in his underwear and white cowboy boots, then allegedly charging at police. TMZ described the video that they obtained of him depicting the rapper nearly naked and floating aimlessly down Ventura Boulevard in the early morning hours. And I saw that and I'm like, uh-oh. I used to live not too far from there, just down the street from Ventura Boulevard. So I'm reading through this thinking, uh-oh, this is not good. Someone driving past him recorded Nas, who repeatedly pointed at the camera and muttered something about heading to a party. And at one point, he placed an orange traffic cone on his head. So he was clearly out of it here. When he was in the Studio City area, police received reports of a naked man, and the Los Angeles Police Department responded. He was still walking in the middle of the road when the LAPD found him. He allegedly charged at the officers. So Studio City and Ventura Boulevard and Studio City is right where I used to live. I lived in Studio City, and about, 2 blocks from where my apartment was at the time was Ventura Boulevard. So he was right there in that area. So I know exactly where they're talking about here. He was taken to the hospital, and paramedics said that he was suffering from a possible overdose of an unknown substance. You don't say. Yeah, it's called evil. As of Friday, his condition was still unknown. Moreover, there had been signs that this was coming before Before Thursday's incident, the singer had shared a series of images on Instagram of his messy house with pieces of art and furniture scattered throughout. So it sounds like he's losing it here. So anyway, here's some of what he said, I guess, in his post, but I can't believe it would actually matter. He started smoking weed heavily, a substance which has made him more connected with the universe, quote unquote, he says. So, who knows? He could be, getting weed that's, laced with fentanyl or something. It's seriously bad news. So, anyway, it says that he goes on to talk about some of the stuff that he did and said in his songs, which, it's all evil. He said he also released a pair of Satan shoes. I remember reporting on this, along with the single that they're talking about. And the limited run of sneakers had the number 666 on them and even a drop of human blood in them. I remember that. If that wasn't bad enough, listen to the description of the video from J Christ that he talks about. And it sounds like he even regrets that based on what this quote says. while he released a video saying he was not necessarily apologizing, he said, "I also didn't mean to, like, mock. It was literally me saying, 'Oh, I'm back like Jesus,'" he says. That was the whole thing, he continued. "I'm not the first person to dress up as Jesus. I'm not the first rapper, and I won't be the last," he says. So that was, I guess, in response to that song. Anyways, it sounds like he is spiraling downward, and probably in more ways than one, if you ask me, if he doesn't repent. So this is not good. Says, "Our prayers, of course, are with Mr. Hill, but not just that he gets better physically and mentally. This man that desperately needs to get better spiritually, or else, if the past is any indication, he stands to meet a dark end." So that was kind of where I was going with this whole story. It's sad to see, rappers being taken advantage of and spit out by the system, but this is exactly what's going on when you look at Hollywood and how evil things are there. So I pity the guy, and I feel sorry that he's in this situation, which of course he's put himself in, but maybe he will literally come to Jesus and things will turn around for him. I don't know. So even though you don't want to, I would say a prayer for this guy, because it sounds like he's probably on a very, very short leash as far as what he can do and say and still maintain his contracts and all that kind of stuff versus where he's going if something bad happens to him. I think it's bad news. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that and just ask for prayers for this guy, because he is clearly sick and twisted. All right, modernity.news is the U.S. government weaponizing cell towers and targeting civilians with directed energy? ? That would be a big yes. Attorney Anna Toledo exposes illegal surveillance programs and Havana syndrome attacks on Americans. So this is an embedded video here. This is, I mentioned John Fleetwood earlier. This is actually based on one of his posts, I guess. In this interview, Puerto Rican attorney Anna Toledo, board member of Targeted Justice, sounds the alarm on government weaponization programs, directed energy attacks, and the targeting of whistleblowers and everyday Americans. If the significance is chilling, if true, it represents one of the most sweeping, covert domestic warfare programs ever admitted in fragments by Congress, military reports, and whistleblowers. Talking about targeted individuals, of which I have known some before, Havana syndrome, congressional acknowledgement, evidence of the attacks, historical precedent, implants and wearables, and who was out there touting wearables recently? That would be RFK Jr. And the bigger agenda, talking about voice to skull, which I personally have some experience with myself. And if you've missed those stories, I won't bother boring you with it tonight, but needless to say, I had my own experience on March 11th, 2016, and exactly 1 month later, not to the minute, but to the same day, April 11th, 2016, I was nearly killed in a car accident. And I experienced on March 11th what I was later told by Dr. Rima Lebo and her husband, General Bert Stubblebine, and others, that what I experienced was voice-to-skull technology. So I don't consider myself a targeted individual. However, apparently I went through it at least once, and I can say that what I experienced was 100% totally real. So for the people who are experiencing it all the time, my heart goes out to you, because it is not good. It is miserable. Anyway, that's on modernity.news. One more from that site. Why are more and more Americans becoming disabled? So this is something that I have thought about pretty often, actually, because as many of you guys know, a couple years ago now, almost 2 years exactly, 2 years in September, my mother, who lived in Indiana at the time, suffered a stroke and has subsequently been coming back from that, and she's doing really well. So I've had people ask me about her. She's doing pretty well, but she is not getting around as well as she used to. She's 83. So I've noticed this, though, that more and more people, because of when she and I go places, just driving around and going to various places, stores, restaurants, etc., I'm noticing how many handicapped people there are. Not only just handicapped spaces in the parking lots, but just how many people are having a hard time just doing the basics as far as being able to get around. And I'm kind of thrust into that world a little bit. Speaking of the car accident that I had in 2016, I had a taste of that directly myself with the car accident. I was not able to walk for 4 months after the car accident. So I was using a wheelchair and then eventually a walker and then eventually a cane during a 4-month period there where I was not able to, get around myself. So I was at least somewhat tuned into that. And now with her and dealing with helping her get around, I've really noticed this a lot. So I'm sure you guys probably have as well. So let's take a look at this article. This is also a Vigilant Fox article, which I've mentioned more than once tonight. Bureau of Labor Statistics data reveals 1.1 million more Americans have become disabled in just the past 3 months. Why is nobody talking about this? So, this is as a result of, obviously, I would think, so the month of July added another 234,000 disabled Americans, making the current high the third new high in a row. Prominent data analyst Edward Dowd, you guys know who he is, reports that since February 2021, which is right when the flash sold out, an additional 5.89 million Americans have answered yes to the Bureau of Labor Statistics household survey question on disability. That is a 19.6% increase in reported disabilities over just 4.5 years, something that he calls a disaster. This should be front page news. Why isn't anyone talking about it? Oh, gee, I know. You know too, don't you? That would be because of the slash damaging so many people. Of course, the people that have been injured by them, that number probably doesn't account for 100% of it, but probably a rather large percent of that number, almost 20% increase. But most people aren't going to want to admit that they did it to themselves. So, and that's a tough one. That's a really hard thing to explain to people, that they may have done it to themselves, and that's obviously not something that you want to be on the receiving end of. So you have to be really careful when treading those types of conversations. I've had to do that myself. So anyway, more and more Americans are becoming disabled. Well, now we know why. All right, InfoWars stories here. InfoWars.com report here. Democrat Chicago mayor calls on citizens to rise up against the National Guard if they're sent by President Trump. So this guy is going to get people killed. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, Democrat, said during a Sunday appearance on MSNBC's Weekend, which I think they've changed their name now, by the way. I don't think they're MSNBC anymore, but it doesn't matter. No one watches them. That his constituents would, quote, rise up against tyranny if President Trump sends in the National Guard to crack down on crime, as recently seen in Washington, D.C. I don't know that he can do National Guard in that same capacity because Washington, D.C. is a federal city. There aren't any others of those in the United States. So I don't know that he would be able to do that, although he's talking about doing something to restore peace and stop the violence in some of these cities. So I don't know. We're going to remain firm. We'll take action, but the people in this city are accustomed to rising up against tyranny. No, they're not. They're accustomed to being killed at the hands of violent gang members and others in Chicago. My guess is when they see, if they will honestly look at what's going on in D.C., they will see that it is working. Now, obviously, there has to be a plan in place because when the authorities pull out, they have to have some sort of plan or else it'll go right back to the way it was. It may even be worse. So anyway, this is Trump responding to what this crazy Chicago mayor says and so on and so forth. So probably not worth repeating. But anyway, that is on InfoWars. Watch. Mob attacks ICE agents in San Francisco. Knife-wielding assailant who threatened ICE agents' families is a transgender militant, reports indicate. Shocker. Federal immigration officers came under siege from a mob of open borders militants during enforcement operations in San Francisco this week. So this is exactly where things are headed. The Democrats love their attacks on ICE. They think they're actually attacking Trump, I think, when they do that. Anyway, wearing a keffiyeh, this person reportedly lobbed verbal threats, including, "I'm going to F you up, I'm going to go after your family, I'm going to stab you." So, wow, that is not good. So some of these people got pepper sprayed, I guess. Our brave ICE law enforcement officers are now facing 1,000% increase in assaults against them as they risk their lives to arrest the worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens. These acts of violence are fueled by sanctuary politicians' rhetoric vilifying our law enforcement, Kristi Noem stated. So yeah, that is where it's headed. Anyway, that is an InfoWars article. And then this one, 914 arrests in D.C. 914 arrests in D.C. since Trump mobilized the National Guard. Again, he can do that in D.C. because it's a federal city. I'm not so sure he can do the same exact method here in other cities. So we'll see. 93 more arrests and 6 illegal firearms off the streets of our nation's capital. Pam Blondie's out there touting what they did. So yeah, and that's good. I'm glad they did do that, but she also is going after anti-Semitic coffee brands and stuff. I kid you not. So I'm not so sure that I fully trust what she's saying here, but says she's announced 93 more arrests and 6 illegal firearms taken off the streets in D.C., sending my heartfelt prayers to support all law enforcement officers working to make D.C. safe again. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God, Matthew 5:9. So she did quote scripture, so I'll give her that. Graphic in her social media post boasted that a total of 914 total arrests and 101 illegal guns have been seized as of early this morning. So anyway, I don't know. Pretty interesting. And yeah, we'll see what happens with some of the other sanctuary cities. Dr. James Dobson has passed away. Zionist leader of Christian child trafficking, psychologist, pediatrician, and Christian family social engineering hero. So this obviously is a vaccine impact story that's very anti-James Dobson. I don't necessarily support 100% of what they're saying here. I have no idea. I've never followed the guy. So I'll just put that caveat out there. But what they say here may be 100% true. I don't know. Another American Zionist Christian national hero has died. It was announced today that Dr. James Dobson, the founder of Focus on the Family, has died at the age of 89. His last words on what he believed, Dr. Dobson, his corporation apparently had a memorial website all set up prior to today's announcement that he died. And that was on August 21st, so 4 days ago now. This is the quote at the top of the homepage of the Dobson Memorial website, which are apparently Dobson's last words he wanted to be remembered by. So here's what it says. What I believe. I have concluded that the accumulation of wealth, even if I could achieve it, is an insufficient reason for living. When I reach the end of my days, a moment or two from now, I must look backward on something more meaningful than the pursuit of houses and land and machines and stocks and bonds. Nor is fame of any lasting benefit. I will consider my earthly existence to have been wasted unless I can recall a loving family, a consistent investment in the lives of people, and an earnest attempt to serve the God who made me. Nothing else makes much sense. So that is his final words. Notice that the name of Jesus Christ is never mentioned. Maybe it was because Jesus' teaching on the family was quite different from what Dobson taught, ? Dobson states that apart from a loving family, that nothing else makes much sense, but Jesus said that members of our family will become our enemies if they oppose him. And then here's the passage from Matthew 10:34 through 36. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Very famous passage there. Like Billy Graham, Dobson was a very powerful and influential Christian evangelical leader in the past who was an advisor to 5 presidents: Reagan, H.W. Bush, W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump. During the Reagan presidency, Dobson was appointed to a government commission on pornography, which was a major platform of the Republicans in the 1980s. Dobson gained national recognition on the subject of pornography, where convicted serial killer Ted Bundy allegedly stated that he would only do his last interview before being executed with Dr. James Dobson to talk about America's problem with porn. Many saw through the charade, saying that the problem was not pornography, but Dobson himself. Again, according to this article, interesting Playboy cover here with Donald's signature across the front. They called him out on his hypocrisy as he apparently changed his tune on porn during the 2016 presidential campaign so that he could support the evangelical favorite, meaning Donald Trump. And then this is talking about that it's not, porn is not the problem. The real issue is James Dobson. So this is going on to a kind of a expose here a little bit, no pun intended, of Dobson. So again, the information's here if you guys want to look at it. But yeah, it's highly suspect for sure. So that is on vaccineimpact.com. And then one more from there. Convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell clears Trump of any wrongdoing with Epstein in exchange for prison transfer. Yeah. So he didn't do it, she says, and he wasn't involved, and we just have to believe her. Never mind the fact that pretty much exactly everything else that she said was a lie. Proven lie. Now, she did say that she didn't think that Epstein was a victim of suicide. She did say that. I think she's right about that. But most everything else, from what I could tell, she said is an untruth, as we might say. So anyway, there is a further article here on Vaccine Impact on that as well. All right. GeoWatch for this week. Geoengineering Watch Global Alert News. Can they control the weather? How the secretive history of weather weapons fuels conspiracy theories. Their report continues, government interest in weather control is long-standing, dating from at least 1891. And by the way, we do have patents that go back that far on this website, on GeoWatch. No, not just an interest in weather control, but an all-out effort to control the weather is the reality of what is taking place in our skies. So, and then there's another embedded video here. This is kind of a 2-for-1 on this week's post. You have the Global Alert News main program here, but there's one here under that talking about UV radiation. Does the sun now feel like it's shining through a magnifying glass? Does it feel extremely hot on your face and skin? It is. How high is the UV radiation? View the actual tests in the video. As I state in this clip, we are told by all major agencies that no more than 5% of all UV radiation should be UVB. 5% of all UV radiation should be UVB. Here is the exact quote from the National Library of Medicine. Quote, the UV component of terrestrial radiation from the midday sun comprises about 95% UVA and 5% UVB. UVC and most of UVB are removed from extraterrestrial radiation. That doesn't mean space alien. Extraterrestrial radiation by stratospheric ozone. In reality, as confirmed by UV metering, we are actually getting as much as 55 to 60% UVB on the surface. This means that while we are seeing UVB levels that are up to 1,000% or more above what's being officially disclosed. And it says, follow us on X, Real GeoEng Watch. So yeah, he goes through the numbers here and shows you in this video. So if you're wondering why it seems so hot when you're in the sun, that is why. The UVB levels and also now UVC is what's getting through the nearly destroyed ozone layer. So that is what's going on. And it's not from hairspray. It's destroyed from all of the geoengineering programs going on globally. So it's something that he talks about all the time. So this particular global alert news is called Weaponizing Weather. So geoengineeringwatch.org, feel free to look at that. I've neglected to show you guys the what I call the scheduled weather. I don't know why. I guess the tab got closed on my browser, and then we just never got back to it. So I thought I would revisit that tonight. 6 to 10 day outlooks. Now this is for August 30th through September 3rd. You can see how natural that looks. With a target on the Midwest and the, I guess, Southeast a little bit. So this is all the below normal area with this big swath of near normal, what they're calling normal, and then above out in the West. So again, the geoengineering programs are what is causing this. It is not natural. That is the scheduled weather for August 30th through September 3rd. So below normal in much of the U.S., which is exactly what they try and do. They keep the eastern half of the U.S. cool because that is where most people live. Then they can just talk about how cool things are now when it's been a unbelievably hot summer for most people. All right. And then USA Watchdog, Greg Hunter's site, War, Trump's new $500 note, which I didn't know about this, $500 note. And volcanoes. This is a Martin Armstrong interview. I like Martin. I think he does some really good work. And I tend to think that he's spot on a lot of this stuff. Here's what I didn't know. Armstrong says, forget all the talk of the elite wanting to get rid of cash and replace it with digital currency. Armstrong says, no. Why is Trump talking about a $500 note? Trump would not be even contemplating doing a $500 bill if he was going to cancel the currency. Everybody else is canceling currency and putting in capital controls, and Trump is going in the opposite direction. Yeah, but I don't think he really has control. I mean, he can't even get the Fed chairman to reduce the interest rate. So he might want to create a $500 note. It doesn't mean he'll ever see the light of day. That's my take on this. I do agree with a lot of what Martin Armstrong says. I do think that he's wrong about this, but $500 note, though, that one was new to me. I didn't realize that Trump was trying to do that, according to him. Pretty weird. And then from climateandeconomy.com, we'll just sort of look at the headlines here. This is a site that Mr. Dane told me about and mentioned that might be worth talking about a little bit. This is where he gets a lot of his headlines that he talks about on the Global Alert News radio show each week. When water becomes war, the moral failure of global governance in the Middle East. So that is a linked article here, as are all of these. Drought wilts Israeli agriculture, and farmers face significant water cuts. So even Israel is suffering. Wow, imagine that. Time-lapse shows Iran's largest lake shrinking in drought crisis. So you can see right here the before and after. Wow. Problems multiply as fresh heavy rain pounds Karachi. Yeah, that would definitely be a problem. 245 millimeters of rain flooded the port city, forcing citizens to abandon their cars. Wow, look at that. What a mess. Brutal monsoon season kills at least 1,860 in India and Pakistan. So these are all headlines that you don't really hear about, but they're all collated, put together here on this site. Colorado River running out of water. Why are food prices still rising by so much? In the UK, at least. Did you know that already more than 1,000 glaciers have disappeared in Switzerland over the last 50 years as a consequence of human-caused climate change? I would substitute that with geoengineering. That is the human-caused climate change. Geoengineering. So, yeah, they're saying 1,000 glaciers have disappeared in Switzerland. I don't know. That's just one of the headlines here. So, again, there's quite a bit to look at here on this site. climateandeconomy.com. We'll link to this in the Substack post that I send out. And, of course, can't mention the whole Dobson thing, as I said earlier, without showing the Israel365news.com version of Saint James Dobson passing away here. Obviously, he was very much a friend of the Jewish nation, to say the least. So that's what this article is about, saying how he hung the moon and so forth, because he supported Israel and everything they did. anyway, there's I won't bother going into that, but there's quite a bit here if you guys want to look at it, talking about his impact on supporting Israel. Gee, shocker there, I know. Yeah, and then, okay, so we're going to close tonight with a really important video that somebody posted in the Diamond Report band group. So if you guys are not in the band group, I would humbly suggest that you join, just because you never know. When you post something in there, I may see it and decide to report on it. And this is one of those things. You guys know I've been a big fan of Ron Wyatt's work. He has long since gone to be with the Lord, but I wanted to mention his website here. If you've never seen it, and I personally think that Ron was blessed by God and allowed to find all these things, meaning the Exodus and Red Sea crossing. He found the Exodus and Red Sea crossing. He found Noah's Ark. This has been one of those things that's been in the news even recently. He found that back in the 70s. He found the real Mount Sinai. He found the actual Sodom and Gomorrah. And so on. But this one to me is the big one. He found the Ark of the Covenant in 1982. And you can choose not to believe that if you want. However, I've tackled that whole idea at length on the End Times Dates series on this channel, if you're watching on YouTube. And to me, it's something that really resonated with me. And a friend of mine posted a video of Ron talking in our band group today, and I wanted to share it with you guys because I thought it was really, really neat. Because I'd never seen it before, believe it or not. And I've really looked at a lot of his videos over the years. Ron passed away in 1999, so he was not able to see the unfolding, at least in earthly form, of how many people have embraced his finds and the things that he has talked about. So anyway, he was also from Nashville, which is where I am. I just happened to move to the same area where he lived his life. And so that's one of the things that kind of got me interested in him, was because he was from the same area. And I find it fascinating as far as the whole Ark of the Covenant thing. And this Ark Discovery, arkdiscovery.com website is really good. And this is one that we go into great detail in one of the End Times Dates videos, one of the last ones. I forget which one. I'd have to look. But it is there, and you'll see it. It's all about the Ark of the Covenant. So here it is. This is the Ron Wyatt video that I wanted to share with you guys. So let's take a look at this, and we'll be back in just a few.
I believe that we are living in the last generation on planet Earth as it is today. And I believe that God is getting everyone's attention so that no one will be lost without having had an opportunity to see the truth and accept it and to make the necessary changes.
Mount Sinai was first discovered in 1984 by Ron Wyatt and his sons, who walked across the border into Saudi Arabia without a visa in order to document the evidence here. After seeing the mountain, he and his sons were captured and were accused of espionage. They spent 78 days in prison, awaiting execution, before they were finally released.
When Christ died and the earth shook and the rocks were rent, a crack came right down the entire face of the escarpment, right past the left side of the cross hole, and the stone opened up. Down below, 20 feet below, God had arranged for the Ark of the Covenant with its mercy seat, if you please, his earthly throne, to be positioned right down there 600 years before, in 586 BC, when the Babylonian army destroyed the city. When the centurion stuck his spear in Christ's spleen and probably left ventricle to make sure he was dead before he gave the body to Joseph of Arimathea, when he pulled that spear out, the separated platelets and serum of the blood of the Son of God gushed out, went down through that crack onto the mercy seat. And that ratified the Old Covenant and the New Covenant. The fourth trip I made into this chamber, it was spotless. The furnishings were set in perfect order. The Ark of the Covenant, however, had been placed against the wall, the end of the cave. The end of the cave was a beautiful crystal radiating the colors of the rainbow. Now, I know New Age and all that goes in for rainbows, so do homosexuals and all of that. But God used it first, all right? It's around His throne, and it's around His earthly throne. Now, there's no veil in this setup, so it is the earthly, it's God's temple on earth, or His residence where He once dwelt. And anyway, when I found it like this, there were 4 young men standing in there. And I started to say, you know, what are you doing here? And I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything. One of the people said, we are the 4 angels that have been taking care of the ark since Moses put the tables of stone in it, right? And they instructed me to set up my video camera with the tripod, aim it at the Ark of the Covenant, and they went over, lifted the mercy seat up. I don't know how heavy it is. I've never tried to lift it, but it's solid gold. And the angel said, take the tables of stone out of there. God wants everyone to see those. I took them out, all right? They put the mercy seat back down over the Ark of the Covenant. I backed away a little bit. The angel came, got the tables of stone, put them on a rock ledge inside the chamber, and I was then instructed to take a sample of the blood from the mercy seat, have that analyzed, and I did everything the angel told me to do. Real quickly, okay, dried blood is dead blood. Everybody knows that, all right? They can test the blood of the pharaohs, the mummies of the pharaohs, all right? There's certain things they can do. They cannot get a chromosome count by any method I'm familiar with, all right? Things keep changing. I don't profess to know everything. However, there's no way I know that you can get a chromosome count out of dead blood. You can get a DNA and some other things, but not a chromosome count, all right? That's done by living white blood cells. Now then, first of all, in this analysis, I took the blood into a laboratory in Israel. I asked one of the people I work with in antiquities, where is a good laboratory that does reliable work? And they said, such and such, such and such. I took it. I just said, please examine this blood and tell me what you can tell me about it. All right? They said, well, look, we're going to reconstitute it. We're going to put it in normal saline and keep it at body temperature for 72 hours with gentle swirling. All right, that's their business. That's great. I said, now I want to be there when you check it out. They said, fine. So I was back. They checked it out. I said, now, they said it's human blood. We can tell that. They did whatever tests they need to do. And then I said, take some of the white blood cells and put them in a growth medium and keep them at body temperature for 48 hours. And they said, well, that'll do no good because it's dead blood. I said, would you please do that for me? And they said, okay, we'll do it. So anyway, I said, I want to be there when you take it out and examine it. So I was back there. They took it out, examined it under a microscope, and the one technician called the other one over there, and then they called the boss over there, and they were talking Hebrew a mile a minute there for a little bit, and they looked at me and they said, Mr. Wyatt, this human blood only has 24 chromosomes in it. Everybody else has 46. You see 23 from your mother, 23 from your father, 22 autosomes from your mother, 22 autosomes from your father. You get an X from your mother, you may get an X or a Y from your father, all right? This blood had 23 chromosomes from the mother's side, one Y chromosome only. You see, a child could not have developed if they hadn't had the autosomes from the mother. So all of his physical characteristics were determined by his mother's side of the family, her autosomes. His maleness was determined by this one Y that came from a source, not a human male. Then they said, this blood is alive. And then they said, whose blood is this? I said, it's the blood of your Messiah. And I assure you, those men's lives have changed. Tables of stone are out of the Ark of the Covenant. They're in the chamber on this ledge as far as I know. But when God is ready for this to be shown to the world, and the angel told me it will be after the mark of the beast law is enforced. You understand that? You keep God's law, you have the seal of God. If you keep man's law, which soon will be passed, and if you refuse to keep their law, you can't buy or sell. If you keep their law, it requires that you break God's, and you have the mark of the beast, okay? You may know better and just go along with it, then you have it in your hand. That we have been redeemed, and that we can come to Him in the name and blood of His Son, receive forgiveness and restoration, so that one day, as recorded in the 22nd chapter, 14th verse of the book of Revelation, it says, blessed are they that do His commandments, that they might have a right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. The payment, dear friends, has been made. And in God's appointed time, you will be able to see the proof for yourself. For here we showed you more than adequate evidence or proof that these things have been found. They're God's things, they're not my things. He allowed me to do this, folks, because I'm a simple man. It's very obvious that I didn't find these on my own intelligence, or of my own intelligence. I don't think there's anybody on earth clever enough to have found all of these, but God knew where they were from day one, and He wanted everybody to see them. All right? God has chosen the time when He will show His proof to the world that His Son died for us, and that is recorded in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 5 and 6. It says, there's one God, one mediator between God and man, the man Christ Jesus, who gave Himself a ransom for all, to be testified, or proof shown in due time. That will happen. All right? Remember that, and please, folks, don't allow that wonderful sacrifice to go to waste on your behalf. Don't allow Satan to say, well, other people can be saved, but you're too sorry a specimen to ever have, to even think about it. That's not true. God will accept us where we are, forgive us of our sins, restore us to His likeness, keep us faithful to the end, and then give us a right to the tree of life so that we can enjoy an eternity with a loving God.
So this is something that God has taken into His own hands and is doing a show and tell presentation of his treasures, his archaeological treasures, in a manner that is designed to strengthen the faith of the believers and to convince those who have seen no good reason to believe what Christians have to say, to convince them that the Bible is historically accurate and divinely inspired. Sadly, there are those who insist on making everything fit into the so-called scientific history of planet Earth. And when they do that, they, of course, leave reality and truthfulness behind. And people have to look for themselves at the evidence, and they must pray, because God will enlighten our minds and help us understand the truth, but only if we ask Him. And we must ask Him in the name and blood of His Son, because that is the provision that has been made for all of us.
Welcome to the Ark of the Covenant dig. We've been working in this area since 1979, and shall we say it hasn't been an easy job. In 1982, we were able to get into the chamber where we saw some of the furnishings from the first temple. Now, we accomplished that by going down through this hole here that's about 40 foot deep, and then coming out of there back up into a chimney in spelunker terminology, and then squeezing on into the chamber.
So that was a short and sweet version of what I've been talking about since 2019. And Miss Emily mentioned it here in chat. Yes, it's Take It to the Lord in Prayer, End Times Dates, Part 4 and Part 8. So if you're looking for those and want further information, they are there. They've been there. They were on my original YouTube channel that got deleted. And now when I started a new one in 2021 sometime, I guess it was, I re-uploaded them then. So those videos have been around a while, and I think that Ron Wyatt is telling the truth 100%. And if you wondered about his background, he is a nurse anesthetist, a person who puts people to sleep, or at least he was, a person who puts people to sleep for operations. And so he knows a little bit about the whole healthcare system and blood and all that. So he knew what he was talking about. He had, I don't think he mentioned it in that video, but he had 3 different labs around the world do the same analysis on the blood that he collected the samples from the cave. And he had a lab in Jerusalem. That's the one that he talked about there. They did the analysis, but he also had an analysis done in Berlin, I think it was, and then another one in Knoxville, which is where there apparently was a lab at the time in Tennessee that could handle that information and could do the research. And so he proved it in triplicate. So it's not like he's making this stuff up as far as the chromosome count and all that stuff. And it's such a fantastical type of story. I don't see how anyone could just think this up on their own and talk about how things unfolded in the temple. So to me, this is what happened. And you'll notice that he's talking about the Mark of the Beast law, and that the tablets will be known or shown to the world upon the institution of the Mark of the Beast law, so that you can have a choice between God's word and what Satan's trying to do, meaning the world. So I think that's where it's headed. I think we're right on the precipice of all of this unfolding. I've thought that for some time. But, you know, as we know, things don't always turn out exactly the way we think, but I think it's getting really close. We talked last week about the red heifer sacrifice having now happened, and that will probably be a non-story at this point from Israel's perspective, because it's happened, and all the people in the know over there already know it happened. So that leaves the next thing, which would, by all accounts, be a building of that temple, the third temple. So I think that is what we are bound to see. That's why I've kind of maintained this whole time that I think that before the temple is built, obviously they're going to need to get rid of the buildings, including the mosque, on top of the Temple Mount. And I think that it will be an earthquake that reveals not only, damages or destroys the mosque and the buildings on Temple Mount, so that they can say, see, God, it's God's will for the temple to be built. Not only would that happen, but also just the fact that everything Ron described here is still sitting there in the cave temple in Jerusalem, just around the corner from the Temple Mount. It's in Zedekiah's cave. That's what he talks about. And that's something that I went into a lot of detail in, especially in part 8 of End Times Dates. So feel free to look at that if it's interesting to you. I find it fascinating. And I think it's a little glimpse into what is going to unfold in the next, I don't know, year or two, probably. It's really hard to say. All you can go by is your own discernment and how things are unfolding in the world now. And we are certainly seeing a lot of these end times events playing out little by little, but it's never the way that we expect them to be. So I will say that it's not the way I thought it would be. I thought there would be more distinct, different time situations where we'll see something happen and we'll be like, okay, well, this has happened. Now we know we're here on the timeline. And it hasn't really unfolded that way. But I do think we are in the final couple of years here, the final 3.5 years, personally. And that means that there will be an Antichrist very soon. And if God is cutting short the time that Satan has, then he's already done that. He's already done that to a degree, because if we're already in the last 3.5 years and there's no Antichrist yet, God has significantly, without changing his timeline, without changing what he's talked about in his word, without changing that, he has still managed to keep Satan and the biblical Antichrist back to allow for things to unfold the way he wants in his own time. So I think that's all really interesting, and thank you guys for watching that video with me. That was one that I'd never seen before, actually. So thank you to my friends in band. So feel free to join the band group if you guys want, and know that we do share stuff like that on the Diamond Report. And I'm going to go back to my screen sharing here. Yeah, and again, this website is another one that's worth checking out as well. And I'm not affiliated with it in any way, but it is there if you guys want to check it out. There's pretty cool stuff as far as the drawings of the cave temple and things like that. He tried to take pictures of certain things, but the pictures would never turn out. And he realized later it wasn't God's appointed time yet. So therefore, the pictures were just a wash of light or whatever. There was no pictures that were able to be developed from that period of time when he found the cave temple. So all we could go off of was his description of what happened. But yeah, Ark Discovery is where this is. ArkDiscovery.com. And you just click on Ark of the Covenant if you want to read about that. But the eyewitness video of the cave and some of these other things are in here. And I went into a lot of what this website talks about actually in part 8 of End Times Dates. So if you guys want to check it out, I would be very, very thankful and hope that you do, and know that, it's not really my story to tell. It's just, I think, where we are in the timeline. And for whatever reason, I feel like God has put that burden, if you want to call it that, on my heart, just to let people know that we are in the end times and that this stuff's unfolding now. We don't know the exact timeline, but we do know that Jesus is returning. And so it's time to get serious. And I think that Ron Wyatt's work is something that is a really great example of, what God has given us as believers, So anyway, okay, let's kind of backtrack a little bit here. And please feel free to join the Diamond Report on Twitter X. This is something that I still am using and posting here. I've posted quite a bit of stuff this week, although it was mostly different shares, so different reposts and things like that. I came across this lady here, and I thought her information was really good. Tiffany Cianci, talking about all kinds of things that I felt like was really, really good information. Maha Commission report raises alarms by backpedaling on insecticide regulation and so forth. So maybe check her out. That's on linked on my Diamond Report on X. So it's x.com/thediamondrprt is where it is. And then here's some video clips of last week's show. I put some funny ones up too, just because that's who I am. I like to laugh and things like this that really strike me as funny and so true. Music TV, MTV turns 44 today. Thank you for 14 years of music. And that pretty much says it all. MTV hasn't played music on music videos for a long, long time. Roger Stone's post, patiently waiting for John Bolton's arrest from 6 a.m. this morning, and we know why. Here is the other post, one of the several that I saw on Cracker Barrel. The old versus the new. Got her in there. It's pretty funny. Remember, if someone dies suddenly, it's not appropriate to ask about their you-know-what status. That information was only relevant for getting into restaurants, pubs, gyms, and keeping your job. Yes, you're not supposed to know that. And then here's a post about digital identity, digital ID. I thought this one was funny. I'll leave it muted, but yeah, watch the feet closely. This is insane. So you can see how this robot is stumbling around a lot like Joe Biden did when he was walking through sand. It is uncanny, actually. It's pretty wild. Let's see what else we have here. Protect him at all costs, Cracker Jack. Yeah, he's going to get he's going to get changed by the woke mob as well. Waffle House unveils successful brand strategy of keeping everything exactly the same forever. So if you're a Waffle House fan, that makes a lot of sense. Yep. And then let's see. Agenda 2030, we've seen this symbol a lot, not necessarily with the hammer and sickle, but we've seen that a lot around King Charles III. What's changed in the last 30 years? Disease or disorder and increase since 1990. Well, let's see here. Let's just pick one. Diabetes is up 305% since 1990. And how about chronic fatigue syndrome? It's up 11,000% since 1990. They'll say, "Oh well, it's always been happening," and they're better at revealing it now. And you can be like, "Well, that's probably not true." I thought this one was funny. There's so many obvious NASA fails, but this one's one of the best. It's a real photo from NASA. I have not verified that this is real, but you can see the zoom in here, and you can tell that it is apparently the way it is here. People should start demanding their money back now already, meaning from the moon landing. The guy's got his boots on backwards. Would that actually happen in a moon landing? That is too funny. Never forget, jet fuel doesn't melt passport paper. So if you have one of the new passports, though, with the real ID, I don't know if it still stays the same because these wouldn't be real ID. So it's possible if you have a real ID, it might melt with jet fuel. I don't know. You can test it if you want to on your own driver's license or passport. Meanwhile, in the UK, what's it like living in the UK? The guy says, "I can't complain." She says, "That's good." And he says, "No, I mean, I can't complain. I get arrested." This is something that I've noticed as well. I'm sure you guys probably have too. Car colors. Who stole all of the color from the world? Look at how colorful cars used to be. And now it's just blah. California issues commercial driver's license to Stevie Wonder. Which, of course, is a joke, but it's funny. Organic versus GMO. You can see that. And this is, says, what is corruption? I'll mute it. But this is some of the mansions that the Zelensky team has bought all over the world. And it says the name of each house and where they're serving. So who knows if it's true or not, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit. I've heard reports that they are buying mansions up in Switzerland and other places. And if that's the case, they are doing so with our tax dollars. That's what is paying for these mansions, for these people working with Volodymyr Zelensky. So how about that? There's Dane talking about the UV as well. Here's the Cracker Barrel memes again. Cracker Lives Matter. It says, don't you die on me, you bastard. Well, we still need to use you. Democrats are trying to revive racism. Let's see here. Why are you still wearing a mask? I don't want to catch the truth. So that kind of sums it up. Anyway, thank you guys for being here tonight with me. It's been kind of a long haul, but we're here. It's 1 a.m. and we are 3 hours in. So yeah, please make sure you're on the Substack list, diamonddisc.substack.com, and Subscribestar as well if you want to contribute to what I'm doing. That's the best way to do it. Subscribestar, you can also do that on Substack. There are various giving options if you want to support what I'm doing, and I would certainly appreciate that because it's the show requires a lot of my time to be able to get everything done that needs to happen. So let's just put it that way. Anyway, thank you guys for your support. I appreciate that, and everybody that's out there that are currently giving. And just so you know, I have a total of 5 whopping subscribers on Subscribestar, and I think I'm down to 8 on Substack. So 13 paid subscribers are the reason that I'm here tonight. So thank you guys. You know who you are. And if you want to be one of the lucky 13 and make it 14, I would really appreciate that. I would appreciate it a lot. But anyway, there's some basic tier support up through some more involved things. You guys can check all that out if you want. Subscribestar link, subscribestar.com/diamonddisc. So anyway, there's the YouTube channel. That is where you'll find the videos I made on Ron Wyatt and so forth that we talked about. They're also on my Rumble channel, though. They are there if you want to go there and click on channels. Right here, take it to the Lord in prayer, end times dates. Those are the actual same videos, same exact videos as what's on the YouTube channel. So they are on Rumble, and I think they're on BitChute and Brighteon as well. But yeah, Diamond Disc in all of these places, except for YouTube. DIAMONDISC. So there's Brighteon, and that was BitChute right before that. And then here is the band group with the new logo. So anyway, yeah, thank you guys for being here tonight. Really appreciate it. We kind of went long tonight, so I'll just peruse the comments really quick. But we are approaching 200 comments here, so I'm not going to be able to read them all. Unless you want to be here till 5 a.m. Some funny stuff on your Twitter, Emily says. Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, good night and blessings and protection over you and your family as well. Thank you. And God bless everyone. Really appreciate that. Yeah. It's been a great show in whole. Thank you so much, Doug. Emily says. Yeah, you're welcome. And Miss Susan says as well. So, yes, thank you guys for being here again tonight. We'll do it again next week. And let's see. Next week is going to be what? The 31st. August 31st, last day of the month. So we'll be back here at 10 p.m. Central Time on August 31st. We'll do it all again then. And luckily, the live stream was stable tonight. Everything seemed to work out okay. So I guess this new system's working out. And, it's easy to say that and have things go wrong. But knock on wood, luckily things just were fine tonight. Went pretty swimmingly, as we say. All right. Well, anyway, appreciate you guys being here and spending your time with me tonight. And know that I do not take that lightly. I know your time is very important, just as mine is and everyone else that we know. So blessings to you guys tonight and for the whole week. And remember to keep Jesus front and center in your life, because we do not know how things are going to unfold, but they are unfolding rather quickly, it seems. So blessings, everyone, and love you all. And we will do it again next week.